Welcome, and thank you for being here tonight. Before we begin our journey into these life-changing Buddhist teachings, I invite you to share in the comments what time it is, where you are, and where in the world you're listening from. There's something beautiful about knowing we're all gathered here together. People from different places, different time zones, all seeking the same thing: peace, rest, and perhaps some wisdom to carry with us. These teachings you'll hear tonight aren't complex philosophies requiring years of study. They're simple truths that have the power to transform how you see yourself, how you see others, how you navigate this complicated experience of being human. As you listen, let yourself relax completely. You don't need to memorize anything or work hard to understand. Just allow these stories and teachings to wash over you like gentle waves, carrying you deeper into rest with each one. Let your breathing slow. Let your body settle. Let your mind release its grip on the day. Tonight, you're going to discover teachings that have brought peace to countless people across thousands of years. And they can bring peace to you too. Buddhism teaches that most of our suffering comes not from our circumstances, but from how we relate to our circumstances. This is a revolutionary idea. It means that peace isn't something we have to wait for, isn't something that depends on everything being perfect. Peace is available right now, in this moment, regardless of what's happening in your life. These teachings aren't about becoming a different person. They're about seeing clearly what's already true, about releasing the mental habits that create suffering and discovering the peace that's been here all along, beneath the noise, beneath the worry, beneath the endless thinking. Tonight's stories will show you how different people discovered these truths in their own lives. How teachers, students, farmers, artists, parents, all ordinary people found extraordinary peace through understanding these simple but profound Buddhist teachings. Let me tell you about a woman named Sarah who lived in Portland, Oregon. Sarah was a social worker who spent her days helping people in crisis. She counseled families going through divorce, helped children in difficult situations, supported people struggling with addiction and mental health challenges. Sarah cared deeply about her work and threw herself into it completely. But after 10 years, she was burning out. She would come home exhausted, not just physically, but emotionally. She would lie awake at night, thinking about her clients, worrying whether she was doing enough, replaying difficult conversations, carrying the weight of other people's suffering as if it were her own. Sarah's husband, James, watched her becoming increasingly depleted. "You can't help anyone if you destroy yourself in the process," he told her one evening when he found her crying in their kitchen after a particularly hard day. But Sarah didn't know how to care about people without taking on their pain. She thought compassion meant suffering with people, carrying their burdens as her own. One Saturday, a colleague invited Sarah to a day-long meditation retreat focused on Buddhist teachings about compassion. Sarah was skeptical. She didn't need to learn about compassion. She lived compassion every day. But she went anyway, desperate for something to help her feel less overwhelmed. The teacher that day was a Buddhist monk named Ajahn Sumedho, who had practiced for 40 years. He spoke about the difference between compassion and what he called idiot compassion. True compassion, he explained, comes from a place of inner stability and peace. It means you're able to be present with someone suffering without being destroyed by it. You can care deeply without drowning in their pain. Idiot compassion, on the other hand, is when you take on other people's suffering as your own, when you let their pain overwhelm you, when you lose your own center trying to fix or save them. Sarah felt something crack open inside her as she listened. This was exactly what she had been doing. She had thought taking on her client's suffering meant she cared more. But Ajahn Sumedho was suggesting something radically different. He said, "Imagine you're walking along a river and you see someone drowning. If you jump in to save them, but you can't swim, now there are two people drowning. This doesn't help anyone. But if you stand on solid ground and throw them a rope, you can actually help your stability, your groundedness, your own peace. These are what allow you to truly help others." This metaphor struck Sarah deeply. She had been jumping into the river over and over, drowning alongside the people she was trying to help, and it wasn't actually helping them. It was just creating two drowning people instead of one. Ajahn Sumedho continued, explaining a core Buddhist teaching. Compassion doesn't mean you feel other people's pain as if it's your own. It means you recognize their pain. You care about their pain, but you maintain your own equilibrium. You stay grounded in your own peace so that you can actually be useful. Think of the Buddha. He encountered tremendous suffering in the world, but he didn't take it on as his own suffering. He remained peaceful, and from that peace, he could teach, he could guide, he could help. His peace was the foundation of his compassion. Sarah had never thought about it this way. She had believed that feeling devastated by others' suffering proved she cared. But maybe it just proved she didn't know how to care skillfully. Over the following months, Sarah worked with this teaching. When she met with clients, she practiced being present with their pain without taking it into herself. She would listen deeply, offer guidance, provide support. But then she would leave work at work. She stopped replaying conversations endlessly at night. She stopped carrying her client's suffering home with her. At first, this felt wrong, almost cold. But then she noticed something unexpected. She was actually more helpful to her clients. When she wasn't drowning in their pain, when she maintained her own peace, she could see their situations more clearly. She could offer better guidance. She had energy to actually help instead of being so overwhelmed that she could barely function. One client, a woman named Jennifer, who was going through a devastating divorce, actually thanked Sarah for this shift. "You used to seem as upset about my situation as I was," Jennifer said, "and that made me feel like things were even worse than I thought. But now you're calm and steady, and that helps me feel like maybe I can get through this. Your peace gives me hope that peace is possible." Sarah realized then that her old way of caring, taking on everyone's suffering, hadn't been helping anyone. It had just been creating more suffering in the world. Her new way, maintaining her own peace while being present with others' pain, this was actually useful. This was true compassion. Sarah's story teaches us something essential about how we relate to suffering, both our own and others. Buddhism distinguishes between pain and suffering. Pain is inevitable. Bodies get sick. Relationships end. People die. Difficulties arise. This is part of being human, part of being alive in a world where everything changes. But suffering, the mental and emotional anguish we create in response to pain, that's optional. Suffering comes from how we relate to pain. When Sarah took on her client's pain as her own, she was creating suffering. The pain was already there. She didn't need to add her suffering to it. When she learned to be present with pain without drowning in it, she could actually be helpful. This teaching applies to how we relate to our own difficulties too. When something painful happens, we have a choice. We can be present with the pain, acknowledge it, to feel it, and respond skillfully. Or we can create elaborate stories about the pain, catastrophize about what it means, resist it, fight with it, adding layers of suffering on top of the original pain. Let me tell you about a man named Thomas who lived in Dublin, Ireland, who learned this distinction in a powerful way. Thomas was a musician, a guitarist who had played professionally for 20 years. Music wasn't just his career, it was his identity, his passion, his way of making sense of the world. When Thomas was 45, he began experiencing pain in his hands. At first he ignored it, assuming it would pass. But the pain worsened. His fingers would ache after playing, then during playing, then even when he wasn't playing. He saw doctors, tried various treatments, but nothing helped. Finally, a specialist diagnosed him with severe arthritis. The prognosis was clear. He could continue playing, but it would be increasingly painful, and eventually he might have to stop altogether. Thomas was devastated. Music was everything to him. Without his ability to play guitar, who was he? What was his life for? He fell into a deep depression, lying in bed for hours, barely eating, pushing away his wife Emma when she tried to help. He would look at his guitar case in the corner of their bedroom and feel such overwhelming grief that he couldn't breathe. Emma was frightened by the change in Thomas. He had always been vibrant, creative, engaged with life. Now he was a shadow, consumed by despair. She convinced him to see a therapist, a woman named Dr. Patricia Chen, who integrated Buddhist psychology into her practice. In their first session, Thomas poured out his anguish. "My hands are failing. My career is over. Everything that mattered is being taken away. I don't know how to live without music." Patricia listened with deep attention, then asked a simple question. "What are you experiencing right now?" In this moment, Thomas looked confused. "What do you mean? I just told you. I'm losing my ability to play guitar." "No," Patricia said gently. "That's a thought about the future. What are you experiencing right now, in this present moment?" Thomas sat with the question. "I'm sitting in this chair. I'm talking to you. My hands hurt a little, but not terribly right now." Patricia nodded. "So in this present moment, you're okay. You're sitting, breathing, talking. Yes. Your hands have arthritis. Yes. Playing will become more difficult. But right now, in this actual moment, you're not losing anything. You're creating suffering by living in an imagined future where you can't play at all." Thomas felt defensive. But that future is real. It's coming. The doctors said so. Maybe, Patricia acknowledged. Or maybe not. Maybe treatments will improve. Maybe you'll find ways to adapt. Maybe you'll discover new forms of music that don't strain your hands. Or maybe you will have to stop playing eventually. But none of that is happening right now. Right now, you still have some ability to play. Right now, your hands still work, even if they hurt. Right now, you're creating suffering by fighting with a future that hasn't arrived yet. This was a revelation to Thomas. He had been so consumed with the story of loss, with the imagined future where music was impossible, that he was missing his present reality. He still could play, even if it hurt. He still had music, even if it was changing. Patricia taught him a Buddhist practice called dropping the story. When you notice yourself caught in a narrative about how terrible something is or will be, you practice simply acknowledging the bare facts without the elaboration. The bare fact for Thomas was, my hands have arthritis and playing guitar causes pain. Everything else, all the catastrophizing about losing his identity, about his life being over, about music being impossible, all of that was story, elaboration, suffering he was creating on top of the actual situation. Thomas began practicing this. When his mind would spiral into, I'm losing everything, or my life is over, he would pause and come back to the bare facts. My hands hurt. That's what's true right now. Not, my hands hurt, and this means my career is finished and I'll never be happy again. Just, my hands hurt. This simple practice created space around the pain. The arthritis was still there. The physical pain was real, but he wasn't adding layers of emotional suffering on top of it anymore. He wasn't catastrophizing, wasn't living in an imagined terrible future. He was dealing with what was actually true right now. Something unexpected began to happen. With less emotional suffering around the pain, Thomas could think more clearly about his actual situation. He started exploring different ways to play that put less strain on his hands. He experimented with alternate tunings, different techniques, shorter practice sessions. He discovered he could still create music, just differently than before. He began composing more, which required less physical playing time, but still let him engage with music creatively. He started teaching, sharing his knowledge with younger musicians. His relationship with music shifted. It became less about virtuosic performance and more about the essence of musical expression. 6 months after starting therapy, Thomas played a small concert. His hands did hurt, and he had to take breaks between songs. But he was present, engaged, sharing music with people. After the show, a young guitarist came up to him. I heard you had to stop playing because of arthritis. Thomas smiled. I did think I had to stop, but I was creating suffering by fighting with the reality of having arthritis. When I accepted it, when I stopped adding all the stories about what it meant, I found I could still play, just differently. The arthritis is what it is. My suffering about the arthritis, that was optional, and I let it go. Thomas's story shows us something profound about the difference between pain and suffering. The arthritis was pain, physical discomfort he couldn't control. But the depression, the despair, the belief that his life was over, that was suffering he was creating through his thoughts about the pain. When he learned to separate the actual experience from the story about the experience, when he practiced being present with what was rather than catastrophizing about what might be, his suffering decreased dramatically, even though the pain remained. This is available to all of us. Right now, as you lie here, breathing, relaxing into rest, notice if there's any place in your life where you're adding story to experience, where you're taking a difficult situation and making it worse through your thoughts about it, where you're fighting with reality instead of accepting it. You don't have to solve this tonight. Just notice it gently, without judgment. This awareness itself is the beginning of freedom. Take a slow breath now. Feel the air moving in and out of your body. This breath is happening right now, without story, without elaboration. Just breath, just life, just this moment. You can return to this simplicity whenever the stories become overwhelming. Let me tell you about a teacher named Margaret who lived in Auckland, New Zealand. Margaret had taught primary school for 30 years and genuinely loved her work. She loved the children, loved seeing them learn and grow, loved creating a warm classroom environment where kids felt safe to take risks and make mistakes. But Margaret had one student in her current class who challenged her in ways she'd never experienced before. His name was Jake, and he was angry. Jake would lash out at other children, to refuse to do his work, disrupt lessons constantly. Margaret tried everything she knew: patience, firm boundaries, rewards, consequences, one-on-one attention, giving him space. Nothing worked. Margaret found herself becoming frustrated with Jake, then resentful, then actually beginning to dislike this 8-year-old child. She felt terrible about these feelings. She was supposed to be a compassionate teacher who saw the best in every child. But Jake triggered something in her, made her feel ineffective and angry. She would go home and complain to her husband David about Jake's behavior, working herself up into a state about how difficult he was. One afternoon, after a particularly challenging day where Jake had knocked another child's project off their desk and then refused to apologize, Margaret sat in her empty classroom and cried. She felt like a failure as a teacher. She couldn't reach this child, couldn't help him. I couldn't even maintain her own composure around him. That evening, Margaret attended a meditation group she'd been part of for years. The teacher that night spoke about a Buddhist practice called metta, or loving kindness. The teacher, a woman named Helen, explained that metta isn't about feeling warm, fuzzy feelings toward everyone. It's about wishing for all beings to be free from suffering, even people we find difficult, even people we actively dislike. This is perhaps the most challenging aspect of the practice. Helen said, "It's easy to feel loving kindness toward people we like, toward cute puppies and babies. But Buddhism asks us to extend this wish for well-being even to people who annoy us, who hurt us, who make our lives difficult." Helen led them through a traditional metta meditation. They started by directing loving kindness toward themselves. May I be happy. May I be peaceful. May I be free from suffering. Then, toward someone they loved, may you be happy. May you be peaceful. May you be free from suffering. Then, and this was the hard part, toward someone they found difficult. Margaret immediately thought of Jake. Helen's voice was gentle. As you bring to mind someone difficult, notice what happens in your body. Notice any tightness, any resistance. And then, as an experiment, see if you can wish for this person to be free from suffering. Not because they deserve it, not because you approve of their behavior, but simply because they're a human being and all human beings suffer. Margaret tried. May Jake be happy. May Jake be peaceful. May Jake be free from suffering. The words felt false at first, like she was lying. But Helen had said this might happen. You don't have to feel it. Helen instructed. Just say the words and see what happens. The feeling may come later, or it may not. But the practice itself, the act of wishing for a difficult person's well-being, this changes something in us. Margaret practiced this metta meditation for Jake over the following weeks. Every morning before school, she would sit quietly and say, "May Jake be happy. May Jake be peaceful. May Jake be free from suffering." It still felt awkward, forced, but she kept doing it because she was desperate for something to change. And something did change, though not what she expected. Jake's behavior didn't magically improve. He was still disruptive, still angry, still difficult. But Margaret's response to him shifted. She began to see him differently. Instead of seeing a problem child who was ruining her classroom, she began to see a suffering child acting out his pain. Instead of taking his behavior personally, as evidence of her failure as a teacher, she could see it as communication from a child who didn't have better tools. One morning, about 3 weeks into her meta practice, Jake threw a book across the room in frustration during a math lesson. Margaret's usual response would have been sharp correction, sending him to the principal's office, feeling her own anger and frustration rising. But this time, something different happened. She felt a wave of compassion. This child was suffering. She didn't know why. I didn't know what was happening in his home life or inside his mind, but she could see clearly that this behavior came from pain. She walked over to Jake calmly, knelt down beside his desk so she was at his eye level, and spoke quietly. "Jake, I can see you're having a really hard time right now. What do you need?" Jake looked at her with surprise. He was used to adults being angry with him, punishing him, giving up on him. He wasn't used to someone asking what he needed. His eyes filled with tears, though he tried to hide it. "I don't understand the math," he said finally, his voice small. "I feel stupid, and everyone else gets it, and I don't." Margaret felt her heart open. All this time, underneath the anger and disruption, Jake was struggling academically and felt ashamed. "Okay," she said gently. "Being confused is really frustrating. I get that. But throwing things isn't going to help you understand the math. What if we work on it together at recess, just you and me, and we'll go slowly until it makes sense?" Jake nodded, not trusting himself to speak, and that became their pattern. Margaret would work with Jake one-on-one, helping him understand concepts he was struggling with, and slowly, over months, his behavior improved. Not perfectly, not all at once, but he wasn't throwing things anymore. He was participating more. He smiled occasionally. Margaret realized that her meta practice hadn't changed Jake directly. It had changed her. It had softened something in her, opened her heart, allowed her to respond to him from compassion instead of frustration. And that shift in her had created space for Jake to shift too. At the end of the school year, Jake's mother came to meet with Margaret. "I don't know what you did," she said, tears in her eyes. "But Jake actually likes school now. He talks about you at home. He tries with his homework. You're the first teacher who hasn't given up on him." Margaret thought about explaining the meta practice, but decided against it. Instead, she just said, "Jake is a good kid who was having a hard time. I'm glad I could help." But inside, she knew the truth. Buddhist practice had helped her see past her own reactivity to the suffering child beneath the difficult behavior. The practice hadn't made Jake easier. It had made her more capable of responding with wisdom instead of reacting from frustration. Margaret's story teaches us about one of Buddhism's most challenging and powerful practices, extending compassion even to people we find difficult. Our natural tendency is to divide the world into people we like and people we don't, people who deserve our kindness and people who don't. But Buddhism invites us to see that everyone is suffering. Everyone is doing their best with the tools they have. Everyone deserves compassion. This doesn't mean we accept harmful behavior or have no boundaries. Margaret still had rules in her classroom. still had consequences when Jake acted out. But she could enforce those boundaries from a place of compassion rather than anger, from a wish for his well-being rather than from frustration at his behavior. Think about someone in your own life who's difficult for you, someone who triggers your anger or frustration or resentment. Can you see, even for a moment, that this person is suffering? That their difficult behavior might be coming from pain you can't see? You don't have to approve of their actions. You don't have to let them hurt you. But can you wish, even experimentally, for them to be free from suffering? This practice is radical because it breaks down the walls we build between us and them, between people who deserve compassion and people who don't. It reminds us that we're all human, all struggling, all worthy of compassion. Breathe gently now, letting your body sink more deeply into rest. Feel how your muscles can release, how your jaw can soften, how even your thoughts can slow. You don't have to work at anything right now. Just receive these teachings. Let them settle into you naturally, like rains soaking into earth. Let us continue with another story that reveals Buddhist wisdom from a different angle. In a small town in Vermont, there lived a man named Robert who owned a used bookstore. Robert loved books, loved the smell of old paper, loved matching the right book with the right customer. His store wasn't profitable, barely covered rent most months. But Robert didn't care. Books were his passion, his purpose. One winter, a large chain bookstore opened in town. They had newer books, lower prices, coffee, comfortable seating. Robert watched his customer base dwindle. People would browse in his store, get recommendations from him, then buy the books cheaper at the chain. Week by week, his sales dropped. Robert felt betrayed by his community, angry at the chain store, worried about losing his business. He would stand in his empty store, surrounded by thousands of books no one wanted to buy, feeling bitter and defeated. His wife Karen watched him growing more depressed. Maybe it's time to close the store, she suggested gently one evening. Find something else you love to do. But Robert couldn't imagine it. The bookstore was his identity, his contribution to the world. Without it, who was he? One Saturday afternoon, when not a single customer had come into the store all day, Robert walked next door to a small tea shop run by an elderly woman named Ruth. Ruth had been there for 40 years, had watched the town change countless times. Robert bought a cup of tea and sat at her small counter, feeling defeated. Ruth could see his distress. "The bookstore?" she asked simply. Robert nodded. "I'm going to lose it. The chain store is killing me. Everything I've built is falling apart." Ruth sipped her tea thoughtfully. "You know, I studied Buddhism when I was younger, spent time in a monastery in Thailand, and one teaching has stayed with me all these years. The Buddha said that attachment is the root of suffering. Not love, not caring, not passion. Attachment." Robert looked at her, confused. "What's the difference?" Ruth smiled. "Love means you care about something. You engage with it fully. You give it your energy. Attachment means you believe your happiness depends on it, that you can't be okay without it, that it defines who you are. You love books? Robert, that's beautiful, but you're attached to the bookstore. You've made it your identity, your source of meaning, your reason for existing. And now that it's threatened, you're suffering because you believe you can't be okay without it. Robert felt defensive. But I've put 15 years into this store. It's not just attachment. It's my life's work. Ruth nodded with understanding. And that work mattered. It still matters. You've connected countless people with books they loved. You've created a gathering place for readers. None of that is diminished by the store closing. If it closes, but you're suffering because you're clinging to the store as if your worth depends on it. What if your worth exists, regardless of whether this business succeeds? This idea shook something in Robert. He had always believed that who he was and what he did were inseparable. If he wasn't a bookstore owner, then who was he? Ruth continued. Buddhism teaches that we suffer when we attach our sense of self to things that are impermanent. Your business, my business, all businesses are impermanent. They arise. They exist for a while. They fade. That's the nature of all things. When we cling to them, when we make them our identity, we suffer as they inevitably change. She paused, then added, I'm not saying don't fight for your store. If you want to keep it alive, work creatively to make it viable. But do that from a place of love for books and community, not from a desperate attachment to your identity as a bookstore owner. Over the following weeks, Robert sat with Ruth's teaching. He began to see how much of his suffering came not from the declining business itself, but from his attachment to being a bookstore owner. He had made it mean something about his worth, his purpose, his identity. When he could separate his love of books from his attachment to owning a bookstore, something loosened in him. He still cared about the store, still worked to keep it viable, but he wasn't drowning in desperation anymore. He could think more clearly about his actual options. Robert got creative. He started hosting author events, book clubs, writing workshops. He couldn't compete with the chain on price, but he could offer community, expertise, personalized service. He created a membership program where regular customers paid a small monthly fee for discounts and exclusive events. Some of these ideas worked, bringing in new revenue. Some didn't. But Robert was okay with that now. He was doing his best, engaging fully with the challenge, without making the outcome mean everything about his worth as a person. A year later, the chain bookstore closed. Apparently, corporate had decided small-town locations weren't profitable enough. Robert's store survived, though it was still barely profitable. But Robert had changed. He no longer saw the bookstore as his identity. It was something he did, something he loved, but not who he was. When a customer asked him one day, "How do you do it? How do you keep going when the business is so hard?" Robert thought about Ruth's teaching. I love books, and I love connecting people with books. Whether I do that through this store or some other way in the future, that love is what matters. The store is just the current form it takes. I'm not attached to the form anymore. I'm attached to the love. Robert's story reveals another core Buddhist teaching: the danger of attaching our identity and worth to impermanent things. We do this constantly. We make our job our identity, and when we lose the job, we lose ourselves. We make a relationship our source of worth, and when it ends, we feel worthless. We attach to our youth, our health, our abilities, and suffer terribly when these inevitably change. Buddhism isn't saying don't care about these things. It's saying don't make your sense of self depend on them, because everything changes. Everything is impermanent. When you attach your identity to something impermanent, Suffering is guaranteed. Consider what you've attached your identity to. Your career, your role as a parent, your appearance, your achievements, your possessions. All of these are impermanent. All of these will change. This isn't pessimistic, it's just true. And when you make your worth depend on these changing things, you set yourself up for suffering. What if your worth exists independently of these things? What if you're valuable simply because you're a conscious being capable of awareness, love, and growth? This worth can't be taken away because it doesn't depend on anything external. It's inherent, unchangeable, always present. Let yourself breathe slowly, feeling your chest rise and fall. Your breath doesn't care about your accomplishments or failures. It just breathes. In this moment, breathing, you are complete. You are enough. Not because of anything you've done or achieved, but simply because you are. Rest in this knowing. Let me share another story that explores Buddhist wisdom about the mind. In Edinburgh, Scotland, there lived a university student named Emma who struggled with anxiety and intrusive thoughts. Emma was brilliant, studying neuroscience, fascinated by how the brain worked. But her own brain tormented her with constant worrying thoughts, catastrophic scenarios, fears about everything that could go wrong. Emma would be walking to class and suddenly imagine failing her exams, losing her scholarship, disappointing everyone. She would be having dinner with friends and a thought would intrude. What if they all secretly hate you? She knew these thoughts were irrational. Her neuroscience training told her they were just neural firing patterns. But knowing that didn't make them stop. The thoughts felt real, felt urgent, felt like truth. Emma tried everything to make the thoughts go away. She would argue with them, try to prove them wrong with logic and evidence. She would distract herself with work, with exercise, with anything to keep her mind occupied. She would avoid situations that triggered anxious thoughts, but nothing worked. The more she fought with the thoughts, the stronger they seemed to become. One evening, Emma attended a talk at the university about mindfulness and mental health. The speaker was a psychologist named Dr. James Morrison, who had studied Buddhist meditation practices. He spoke about a teaching that caught Emma's attention. Most people relate to their thoughts as if thoughts are facts, as if a thought appearing in your mind means something true about reality. But Buddhism teaches us that thoughts are just mental events, like clouds passing through the sky. You are the sky, vast and unchanging. Thoughts are just weather passing through. You don't have to believe every thought. You don't have to fight with every thought. You can simply observe thoughts arising and passing away. This idea was revolutionary to Emma. She had been treating her anxious thoughts as problems to be solved, threats to be fought, truths to be disproven. But what if they were just mental events? No more significant than a bird flying past her window. After the talk, Emma approached Dr. Morrison. "I have intrusive, anxious thoughts constantly," she told him, "and they feel so real, so urgent. How do I just observe them when they're screaming at me that something terrible is going to happen?" Dr. Morrison nodded with understanding. The practice isn't to make the thoughts quiet or peaceful. The practice is to change your relationship to them. Instead of believing them or fighting them, you practice noting them. There's an anxious thought. There's a catastrophic thought. There's a self-critical thought. You're not agreeing with them or arguing with them. You're just acknowledging their presence the way you might acknowledge, there's a cloud in the sky. Emma was skeptical but desperate enough to try. The next time an anxious thought arose, she practiced what Dr. Morrison had taught. She was studying in the library when her mind suddenly said, "You're going to fail your neuroscience exam. You're not smart enough for this program." Her usual response would be to either believe the thought and spiral into panic, or fight with the thought, marshalling evidence that she was smart enough, which would lead to an exhausting internal argument. Instead, she tried something new. She noticed the thought and said silently to herself, "There's an anxious thought about failing. Not, I'm going to fail. Not, that's ridiculous. I'm not going to fail. Just, there's an anxious thought about failing." Something shifted. The thought was still there, but it had less power. It was just a thought, just mental activity, not a truth she had to believe or a threat she had to fight. The thought drifted away on its own, the way clouds drift across the sky without the sky having to push them away. Emma practiced this approach consistently over the following weeks. When anxious thoughts arose, and they still did frequently, she would note them. There's a worry thought. There's a catastrophic thought. There's a self-critical thought. She wasn't trying to make them stop. She was just changing her relationship to them, seeing them as passing mental events rather than as truth or threats. The frequency of anxious thoughts didn't decrease dramatically. Her brain still generated worry and catastrophic scenarios, but Emma's suffering about the thoughts decreased enormously. She could have an anxious thought and continue with her day instead of being derailed by it. She could notice worry arising without being consumed by it. The thoughts were still there, but she wasn't caught in them anymore. She was the sky, vast and spacious, and thoughts were just weather passing through. 6 months later, Emma did a research project on mindfulness-based approaches to anxiety for her neuroscience degree. She wrote about how neuroimaging studies showed that meditation practices change the relationship between the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala, allowing people to observe their thoughts and emotions with more distance instead of being overwhelmed by them. But she also wrote from personal experience. The science is fascinating, but the lived experience is transformative. Learning to see thoughts as mental events rather than as truth or threats has given me freedom I never thought possible. Emma's story teaches us about one of Buddhism's most practical insights. You are not your thoughts. Thoughts arise in consciousness, but they're not who you are. You are the awareness in which thoughts appear. This might seem like a subtle distinction, but it changes everything. When you believe you are your thoughts, when you identify with them, you're at their mercy. Every anxious thought feels like truth. Every self-critical thought feels like accurate self-assessment. Every angry thought feels justified. But when you realize thoughts are just mental events arising and passing in awareness, you have choice. You can notice a thought without believing it. You can observe an emotion without being controlled by it. Think about your own relationship with your thoughts. Do you believe everything your mind tells you? Do you treat thoughts as if they're facts? Most of us do this automatically. A thought says, "I'm not good enough," and we believe it. A thought says, "This is going to go terribly," and we brace for disaster. But what if thoughts are more like suggestions than truths? What if you could hear a thought and simply note it? There's a thought about not being good enough. Interesting. Not fighting with it. Not believing it. Just observing it. pass through your awareness like a cloud across the sky. Breathe slowly now, letting this teaching settle into you. You don't have to change your thoughts or make them different. You just practice observing them with a little distance, a little space. There's a thought, there's another thought, like watching traffic pass by without jumping in front of every car. Your mind will continue generating thoughts. That's what minds do. But you don't have to believe every thought, follow every thought, or be defined by every thought. You can rest in the awareness that notices thoughts, the vast, spacious awareness that's always here, always steady, regardless of what thoughts pass through. Let me tell you about a couple named Daniel and Sophie who lived in Vancouver, Canada. Daniel and Sophie had been married for 12 years, and for the past 3 years, they had been locked in a painful pattern. They would have the same argument over and over, triggered by different surface issues, but always following the same script. Sophie would feel hurt by something Daniel said or didn't say. She would withdraw, becoming cold and distant. Daniel would notice her withdrawal and feel rejected. He would either get defensive and angry or shut down himself. They would spend days in tense silence, each waiting for the other to apologize, both feeling misunderstood and hurt. Sophie came from a family where people expressed love through words and affection. Daniel came from a family where love was shown through actions and practical support. Sophie needed verbal reassurance and physical affection to feel loved. Daniel needed acknowledgement of the things he did for her to feel appreciated. Neither of them was getting what they needed, and both felt like the other was withholding love. Their arguments always circled the same drain. Sophie would say, "You never tell me you love me. You never hug me spontaneously. I feel like you don't care." Daniel would respond, "I work hard to provide for us. I fix things around the house. I plan our vacations. How is that not showing I care?" And they would be stuck, each feeling like the other was being unreasonable. After another particularly painful week of silence, Sophie suggested they see a marriage counselor. Daniel was reluctant, but agreed. Their counselor, a woman named Dr. Patricia Williams, listened to them describe their pattern, then introduced them to a Buddhist teaching about perception. The Buddha taught that we don't see things as they are. We see things as we are. Each of you is interpreting the other's behavior through your own lens, your own conditioning, your own needs. Sophie, when Daniel doesn't say, "I love you," you interpret that as him not loving you. Daniel, when Sophie doesn't acknowledge the work you do, you interpret that as her not appreciating you. But neither of those interpretations is necessarily true. Dr. Williams continued, "There's a famous Buddhist teaching about this. Several blind men encounter an elephant. One touches the trunk and says, 'An elephant is like a snake.' Another touches the leg and says, 'An elephant is like a tree trunk.' Another touches the side and says, 'An elephant is like a wall.' They're all touching the same elephant, but their experience is completely different based on what part they're touching. And they start arguing with each other, each insisting their perception is the truth." She paused, letting this sink in. You two are both touching different parts of the same elephant. Sophie, you're experiencing Daniel's love language as absence. Daniel, you're experiencing Sophie's needs as rejection of what you offer. But neither of you is seeing the whole elephant. This metaphor struck both of them. They had been so convinced that their own perception was correct, was truth, was the only way to see things. But what if they were both right and both wrong? What if they were just seeing from different angles? Dr. Williams taught them a practice. When they felt hurt or misunderstood, instead of immediately reacting from their own perception, they would pause and acknowledge, this is how I'm experiencing this situation. But my partner is experiencing it differently. Neither of us has the complete truth. Then they would ask each other, what's the elephant? What's the whole picture that I'm only seeing part of? This practice was hard at first. It went against every instinct to defend their own perception, to insist they were right. But they kept trying. One evening, Sophie was feeling particularly hurt because Daniel had come home from work, kissed her briefly, and then spent 2 hours in his workshop. Her old pattern would be to withdraw, to interpret this as him choosing his projects over her. Instead, she practiced the teaching. I'm experiencing this as Daniel not wanting to spend time with me, but that's just my perception, my interpretation. Let me check if that's the whole elephant. She went to his workshop and said, Daniel, I'm noticing I feel hurt that you've been out here for hours. Can you help me understand what's happening from your perspective? Daniel looked up from the chair he was refinishing. I'm fixing this chair because you mentioned wanting new furniture, but we can't afford it right now. I thought if I could refinish these old pieces, you'd be happy. I was doing this for you. Sophie felt something crack open in her chest. She had interpreted his workshop time as abandonment. He had experienced it as showing love through action. Neither perception was wrong, but neither was complete. They were touching different parts of the same elephant. I didn't know that, Sophie said quietly. I thought you were avoiding me. Daniel came over and hugged her. I didn't know you needed me to say it. I thought the actions spoke for themselves. They started practicing this regularly. When conflict arose, instead of each defending their perception as the only truth, they would explore together what the whole elephant was. What were they each experiencing? What was valid in both perspectives? What were they missing about each other's experience? This practice transformed their marriage. They still had conflicts, still had different needs and perspectives, but they were no longer locked in that painful pattern of mutual misunderstanding. They could see that they were both touching the same elephant of their relationship, just from different angles. A year later, Daniel and Sophie attended a Buddhist meditation retreat together. The teacher spoke about perception and how it shapes our reality. We think we see things objectively, as they really are, but we're always seeing through the filter of our past experiences, our conditioning, our expectations, our needs. Two people can witness the same event and have completely different experiences of it, and both experiences are real for them. Buddhism teaches us to hold our perceptions lightly, to acknowledge that our view is always partial, always filtered, never the complete truth. Daniel leaned over and whispered to Sophie, "The elephant teaching." She smiled and squeezed his hand. They had learned this truth in their marriage, and now they were hearing it articulated as ancient wisdom. Our perceptions are real but partial. Our experience is valid but incomplete. When we can hold this truth, when we can acknowledge that others are seeing from different angles, we create space for understanding, for compassion, for connection that wasn't possible when we each insisted our perception was the only truth. Daniel and Sophie's story teaches us about one of Buddhism's most important insights. We don't see things as they are. We see things as we are. Our perception is always filtered through our past, our conditioning, our expectations, our needs. This doesn't mean there's no objective reality, but it means our experience of reality is always subjective, always partial. When we can remember this, when we can hold our perceptions more lightly, we suffer less and connect more. We stop insisting that our view is the only view, and we become curious about what others are experiencing. Think about a conflict in your own life. Someone who frustrates you, someone you're convinced is wrong about something. What if you're both touching different parts of the same elephant? What if their perception is real for them, based on what they're experiencing, even if it's completely different from your perception? This doesn't mean you have to agree with them or that there's no right and wrong, but it creates space for understanding, for seeing that most conflicts come from different people touching different parts of the same reality. Let your breathing deepen now, your body sinking more heavily into rest. You can feel yourself becoming drowsy, thoughts slowing, awareness softening. This is natural. This is good. Let yourself drift deeper. We have more stories to explore, more teachings to receive, but you don't have to work at staying alert. Just let these words carry you into deeper and deeper rest. Let me tell you about a man named William who lived in a small town in rural Australia. William was a doctor, had been practicing family medicine for 30 years. He was good at his work, competent, thorough, but somewhere along the way, he had become jaded. He had seen so much suffering, so many people whose problems he couldn't solve, so many patients who didn't follow his advice and then blamed him when they got worse. William had developed a protective distance from his patients. He did his job, diagnosed their conditions, prescribed treatments, but he kept himself emotionally separate. He couldn't afford to care too much. He told himself, caring too much would break him. But this distance made his work feel hollow. He would see patients all day and come home feeling empty, disconnected, numb. His wife Grace noticed the change in him over the years. "You used to love being a doctor," she said one evening. "What happened?" William shrugged. "I got realistic. I saw that most people don't want to change, don't want to do the hard work of getting healthy. I'm just there to hand out pills and listen to complaints. It's depressing." Grace looked at him sadly. "That sounds lonely. Doing important work, but not letting yourself connect with it or with the people you're helping." William had a patient named John, a man in his 60s with diabetes who had been coming to see William for 15 years. John struggled to manage his blood sugar, made poor dietary choices, didn't exercise consistently. William had grown frustrated with John over the years, seeing him as someone who refused to help himself. During one appointment, William was going through John's latest test results, which showed his diabetes was worsening. William felt his usual frustration rising. "John, we've talked about this so many times. You need to change your diet and exercise more. If you don't, you're going to end up with serious complications." John looked down at his hands. "I know, Doc. I'm trying. It's just hard." William felt himself about to launch into a lecture about how hard didn't matter. Results mattered. When something stopped him, he looked at John's face and really saw him for the first time in years. Saw the shame there, the defeat, the struggle, and William had a moment of recognition. This man wasn't refusing to change because he was lazy or didn't care. He was struggling with something genuinely difficult, and William's frustration and judgment were only making it harder. William felt something soften in his chest. "Tell me about what's hard," he said. his tone completely different, more gentle, more curious. John looked up, surprised by the shift. I eat when I'm stressed, and I've been really stressed. My wife died 2 years ago, and I'm lonely. Doc, I come home to an empty house, and I eat because it's something to do. Something that feels comforting, even though I know it's not good for me. William felt his throat tighten. He had known John's wife had died. It was in the chart, but he had never connected that loss to John's worsening diabetes. He had been so focused on the numbers, the test results, that he had forgotten John was a grieving human being, not just a non-compliant patient. I'm sorry about your wife, William said quietly. That must be incredibly hard. John's eyes filled with tears. Thank you. Most people don't ask anymore. They think I should be over it by now. William realized with shame that he had been one of those people. He had seen John's non-compliance as a problem to fix rather than as a human being struggling with grief. They talked for another 20 minutes. Not about blood sugar and diet plans, but about loss and loneliness and how hard it is to take care of yourself when you're heartbroken. By the end of the conversation, they had made a simple plan. John would join a community center that had both social activities and an exercise program. He needed connection as much as he needed better blood sugar control. Something shifted in William that day. He realized he had been protecting himself from caring by seeing his patients as problems rather than as people. But that protection had come at a cost. His work had become empty, mechanical, devoid of meaning. He had lost the heart of why he became a doctor in the first place, to help suffering people. That evening, William told Grace about the appointment with John. I had forgotten how to see my patients as human beings. I was so focused on their lab values and compliance that I lost sight of the whole person. And it made me miserable. Grace smiled sadly. That's what happens when we protect ourselves too much. We think we're avoiding pain, but we're also cutting ourselves off from meaning, from connection, from what makes life worth living. William nodded. There's probably a middle path. Caring about my patients without taking on their suffering as my own, the way I used to when I was younger. Being present with their pain without being destroyed by it. Grace recognized what he was describing. That sounds like something I read in a Buddhism book. The middle way. Not shutting down completely, but not being overwhelmed either. Finding balance. Over the following months, William practiced this middle path. He allowed himself to connect with his patients, to see them as whole human beings with complex lives, not just as medical problems. But he also maintained healthy boundaries. He cared deeply during the appointment, but he didn't carry their suffering home with him. He was present with their pain without making it his own pain. This balance transformed his practice. His patients responded to his renewed warmth and presence. They opened up more, followed treatment plans better because they felt truly seen and cared for. And William found meaning in his work again. He wasn't just going through the motions. He was genuinely helping people, genuinely connecting, genuinely doing work that mattered. One afternoon, John came in for a follow-up appointment. His blood sugar levels had improved significantly. He had lost weight. He looked healthier and, more importantly, happier. The community center has been great. John told William, I've made friends, been doing water aerobics, even started dating someone I met there. Life feels worth living again. William felt genuine joy at John's progress. I'm so glad. You deserve to be happy, After John left, William sat in his office and felt a deep sense of gratitude. He had almost lost his calling by closing his heart. But by finding this middle path, by allowing himself to care without being overwhelmed, he had rediscovered why medicine mattered to him. William's story teaches us about the middle way, one of Buddhism's foundational concepts. We tend to swing between extremes. Either we care so much that we're overwhelmed and burned out, or we shut down completely to protect ourselves and become numb and disconnected. Buddhism teaches there's a middle path between these extremes. We can care deeply without drowning in suffering. We can be present with pain without being destroyed by it. We can engage fully with life without being overwhelmed by it. This middle path isn't about being lukewarm or half-hearted. It's about finding sustainable balance, about showing up fully without losing ourselves. Think about where you might be at an extreme. Are you shut down and numb, protecting yourself so much that you're disconnected from meaning? Or are you overwhelmed, taking on too much, caring so much that you're drowning? The middle path invites you to find balance, to care without carrying everything, to be present without being consumed, to engage without being destroyed. This balance is available to you. It requires practice, requires awareness, requires constant adjustment. But it's the path to sustainable engagement with life. Feel your breath moving slowly in and out. Feel how your body knows this middle way naturally, not forcing the breath, not stopping the breath, just allowing it to flow naturally. Your body doesn't try too hard or give up completely. It finds the natural rhythm that sustains life. You can bring this same wisdom to how you live, how you care, how you engage with the world. Breathe and rest in this knowing. Let me tell you about a woman named Charlotte who lived in London, England. Charlotte was a successful architect who had built an impressive career designing innovative buildings. She was talented, driven, respected in her field. But Charlotte had a problem. She couldn't accept compliments or acknowledge her own success. When clients praised her work, she would deflect. Oh, it was nothing special. Anyone could have done it. When colleagues congratulated her on awards, she would minimize. I just got lucky. The timing was right. When her designs were featured in architecture magazines, she would focus on the flaws only she could see. Charlotte's partner, a woman named Amelia, found this frustrating. Why can't you just accept that you're talented? Why do you always have to minimize your achievements? Charlotte would shrug. I'm just being realistic. I don't want to be arrogant. But Amelia saw something else. It's not humility. It's more like you're afraid to acknowledge your own worth. Like you don't believe you deserve success. This observation hit Charlotte hard because she knew it was true. Deep down, she didn't feel like she deserved the success she had achieved. She felt like an imposter who had somehow fooled people into thinking she was talented. Charlotte decided to explore this with a therapist, a man named Dr. Play, Marcus Chen, who incorporated Buddhist principles into his practice. In their first session, Charlotte explained her struggle. I've achieved a lot objectively, but I can't feel good about it. I always feel like I'm one mistake away from being exposed as a fraud. Marcus nodded with recognition. This is called imposter syndrome, and it's incredibly common among high achievers. But there's something deeper here too. You're relating to yourself as if your worth is conditional, as if you have to constantly prove you deserve to exist, to succeed, to be valued. Marcus introduced Charlotte to a Buddhist teaching about inherent worth. Buddhism teaches that all beings have what's called Buddha nature, an inherent capacity for wisdom and compassion that exists independent of achievement or accomplishment. You don't earn your worth through success. You don't lose your worth through failure. Your fundamental worth as a conscious being is unchanging. Charlotte felt skeptical. That sounds nice, but it doesn't match reality. In the real world, you're valued for what you produce, what you achieve. Worth isn't inherent, it's earned. Marcus challenged this. Who taught you that? Where did you learn that your worth depends on achievement? Charlotte thought about it. Her parents had been loving but demanding, always pushing her to excel, rarely satisfied with anything less than perfection. Her father would say, "Good, but you can do better," even when she brought home excellent grades. Her mother would point out the one flaw in an otherwise successful project. Charlotte had learned early that approval, love, acceptance, all of these had to be earned through achievement. She had internalized the belief that she was only as valuable as her latest success. Marcus gave her a practice. When you notice yourself minimizing an achievement or deflecting a compliment, pause and acknowledge what you're doing. Then say to yourself, "I am worthy independent of this achievement. My worth doesn't come from my work. My work is an expression of my creativity and effort, but it doesn't define my value as a human being." Charlotte tried this practice, though it felt absurd at first. When a client praised a building she had designed, Charlotte's automatic response was to deflect. "Oh, it was really a team effort." But she caught herself, paused, and tried Marcus's practice. "Thank you. I'm proud of how this turned out." It felt uncomfortable, almost dangerous, to simply accept the compliment without minimizing it. Over time, as Charlotte practiced acknowledging her achievements without deflecting, something began to shift. She started to see how much energy she had been spending on proving her worth, on trying to earn the right to exist, on constantly demonstrating that she deserved the success she had. It was exhausting, and it was based on a false belief. The belief that worth had to be earned. Marcus helped her see that this belief was optional, not truth. You can choose to see worth as inherent. You can acknowledge that you're valuable simply because you're a conscious being capable of creating, connecting, and contributing. Your achievements are wonderful expressions of your creativity, but they're not the source of your worth. Charlotte began experimenting with this perspective. What if she was valuable regardless of whether her next project succeeded or failed? What if her worth didn't depend on constantly proving herself? This was terrifying at first because she had spent her whole life trying to earn the approval and acceptance she believed she needed to deserve. But it was also liberating. If her worth was inherent, unchanging, not dependent on achievement, then she could create from joy rather than from fear. She could take risks, try new things, even fail sometimes, without it meaning anything about her fundamental value. 6 months into this practice, Charlotte was working on a challenging project, a museum that pushed the boundaries of her typical design approach. Midway through, the client rejected her initial concept, saying it didn't match their vision. The old Charlotte would have spiraled into shame and self-doubt, seeing the rejection as confirmation that she was a fraud. But this Charlotte, practicing the teaching about inherent worth, had a different response. She felt disappointed. Certainly, the rejection stung. But underneath the disappointment was something solid, something that didn't crumble. Her worth wasn't tied to this project's success. She was valuable whether this client accepted her design or not. Charlotte went back to the drawing board with curiosity rather than desperation. What could she learn from the client's feedback? What new direction might this open up? She created a revised design that incorporated the client's concerns while still maintaining her creative vision. The client loved it. The project moved forward. But more importantly, Charlotte had learned something profound. Her worth didn't rise and fall with every success and failure. It was constant, unchanging, inherent. She could engage fully with her work without making it mean everything about whether she was valuable as a human being. A year after starting therapy, Charlotte attended a Buddhist meditation retreat. The teacher spoke about Buddha nature, the inherent capacity for awakening that exists in all beings. You don't create Buddha nature through practice. You don't earn it through good behavior. It's already present. Always has been. Always will be. Practice just helps you recognize what's already true. Charlotte felt tears streaming down her face. This was what Marcus had been trying to teach her. Her worth, her fundamental okayness. It didn't need to be earned or proven. It was already present, had always been present, would always be present. She had just been so busy trying to earn it that she couldn't see it had been there all along. Charlotte's story teaches us about one of Buddhism's most compassionate insights. Your worth is inherent, not earned. In a culture that constantly tells us we have to prove our value through achievement, productivity, success, this teaching is radical. You are valuable simply because you are. Not because of what you've done or what you might do, but because you're a conscious being capable of awareness, love, and growth. This worth can't be taken away. It doesn't fluctuate based on success or failure. It's constant, unchanging, always present. Think about how you relate to your own worth. Do you believe you have to constantly prove you deserve to exist, to be loved, to be valued? Do you measure your worth by your achievements, your productivity, your success? This is exhausting, and it's based on a belief that's optional. You can choose to see your worth as inherent, as something that exists independent of anything you do or don't do. This doesn't make you lazy or unmotivated. Charlotte continued creating beautiful buildings, but she did it from joy and creativity rather than from desperate need to prove her worth. When your worth is secure, when you know it's not conditional, you're actually more free to take risks, to be creative, to fully engage with life. Let yourself breathe deeply now, feeling your whole body heavy and relaxed. You are worthy of this rest. You are worthy of peace. Not because you've earned it through achievement, not because you've done everything right, but simply because you are. Your worth is inherent, unchanging, always present. Rest in this knowing. Let it hold you as you sink deeper into relaxation, deeper into peace. Let me tell you about a man named Kevin who lived in Dublin, Ireland. Kevin was a high school English teacher who loved literature and loved sharing it with his students. But Kevin had developed a bad habit. He compared himself constantly to other teachers. When a colleague's students scored higher on exams, Kevin felt like a failure. When another teacher won a teaching award, Kevin felt inadequate. When he walked past another classroom and heard students laughing and engaged, while his own class sometimes seemed bored, Kevin would torture himself with comparisons. Why was that teacher better than him? What was wrong with his teaching? Why couldn't he be as good as everyone else seemed to be? This constant comparison made Kevin miserable. He couldn't enjoy his own successes because he was too busy looking at others' successes and finding himself lacking. He couldn't take pride in his students' growth because he was comparing their growth to other students' growth. His wife, Siobhan, watched him become increasingly anxious and unhappy. "You're a wonderful teacher," she would tell him. "Your students love you. Why can't you see that?" But Kevin couldn't see it because he was always looking sideways at others instead of looking at his own path. One summer, Kevin attended a week-long workshop on contemplative pedagogy, teaching methods that incorporated mindfulness and reflection. One of the instructors was a Buddhist teacher named Ajahn Chah, who spoke about the trap of comparison. The Buddha taught that comparing yourself to others is one of the quickest paths to suffering. When you compare, you either end up feeling superior, which breeds arrogance, or inferior, which breeds shame and inadequacy. Neither of these states is useful or true. Ajahn Chah continued, "In Buddhism, we talk about your own path, your own practice, your own development, not in comparison to anyone else, but in relation to where you were yesterday, last week, last year. The only meaningful comparison is with your former self. Are you more patient than you were? More skilled? More compassionate? These are questions about your own growth, not about how you measure up to others." This teaching struck Kevin deeply. He had been so focused on comparing himself to other teachers that he had never asked himself the more important question. Was he becoming a better teacher over time? Was he growing, developing, deepening his skills? When he thought about it honestly, the answer was yes. He was more patient with struggling students than he had been 5 years ago. He was better at adapting his teaching to different learning styles. He had developed more engaging lesson plans. He had grown considerably. But he had never acknowledged this growth because he was too busy comparing himself to others and finding himself wanting. Ajahn Chah taught them a practice. When you notice yourself comparing, pause and bring your attention back to your own path. Ask yourself, what am I learning right now? How am I growing? What's my next step forward? These questions orient you toward your own development rather than toward comparison with others. Kevin began practicing this when he returned to school in the fall. When he walked past a colleague's classroom and felt the familiar pang of comparison, he would pause. Instead of spiraling into, "Why can't my class be like that?" he would ask himself, "What am I learning in my own teaching right now? How am I growing?" This shift in focus changed everything. Kevin started noticing his own progress. He was getting better at facilitating discussions that brought out multiple perspectives. He was developing better relationships with struggling students. He was creating more inclusive lesson plans. All of this growth had been happening, but he had been too focused on comparison to see it. One afternoon, Kevin had a particularly good class. They were discussing a poem, and the conversation flowed beautifully. Students were building on each other's insights, asking deep questions, genuinely engaged. Afterward, Kevin felt a moment of pure satisfaction, appreciation for this beautiful teaching moment. Then his old habit kicked in. "But Mr. O'Brien probably has classes like this all the time." Kevin caught himself. He paused and brought his attention back to his own experience. "No, that was a beautiful class. My students were engaged and learning. That's what matters. Not whether Mr. O'Brien's classes are different or better or worse. My students had a meaningful learning experience today. That's success." This practice of returning to his own path his own growth, his own students, gradually freed Kevin from the torture of comparison. He could appreciate his colleagues without feeling diminished by their success. He could celebrate his own wins without needing them to be bigger than everyone else's wins. He was running his own race, not competing in someone else's. By the end of that school year, Kevin realized something profound. The teachers he had been comparing himself to, measuring himself against, they were dealing with their own challenges, their own doubts, their own growth edges. Everyone was on their own path. Some teachers were naturally gifted at classroom management but struggled with lesson planning. Others had brilliant curriculum ideas but found student relationships difficult. Kevin's strengths were in creating a warm classroom environment and helping struggling students feel capable. These were real gifts, valuable contributions. He didn't need to be the best at everything. He just needed to keep growing in his own way, at his own pace. One of Kevin's students, a girl named Aoife, who had struggled with English for years, came to him at the end of the year. "Mr. Kevin, I just wanted to thank you. I used to hate English class, but this year, you made me feel like I could do it. You never made me feel stupid when I didn't understand something. You helped me see that I actually like reading and writing. You changed how I see myself." Kevin felt tears forming. This was what teaching was about. Not about being better than other teachers. Not about winning awards or having the highest test scores. About reaching individual students. About helping them discover their own potential. Aoife's growth had nothing to do with how Kevin compared to Mr. B, O'Brien, or anyone else. It was about the relationship they had built, the support he had offered, the growth she had achieved. Kevin's story teaches us about the trap of comparison, something Buddhism warns against explicitly. Theodore Roosevelt said, "Comparison is the thief of joy." And Buddhism understood this truth thousands of years earlier. When you compare yourself to others, you set yourself up for suffering. Either you feel superior, which creates arrogance and separates you from others, or you feel inferior, which creates shame and inadequacy. Neither state is useful. Neither reflects reality. The person you're comparing yourself to is fighting battles you know nothing about. They have strengths you don't have, but they also have struggles you don't see. Comparison is always based on partial information, on surface appearances, on your projections of their experience. Buddhism invites you to focus on your own path, not because other people don't matter, but because your growth, your development, your journey is what you actually have influence over. You can't control what others achieve or how they live, but you can pay attention to your own growth. Are you more patient than you were last year? More skilled? More compassionate? More aware? These are the meaningful questions. Not, am I as good as that person? But am I growing? Am I moving forward on my own path? When you orient toward your own development rather than toward comparison with others, you find both peace and motivation. Peace because you're not constantly measuring yourself and finding yourself lacking. Motivation because you can see your actual progress and feel inspired to continue growing. Think about where you compare yourself to others. Social media makes this worse, showing us curated highlights of other people's lives and inviting constant comparison. Someone's career seems more successful. Someone's family seems happier. Someone's life seems more exciting, more meaningful, more everything. But you're comparing your full reality. All the behind the scenes, struggles and doubts. to their carefully curated public presentation. It's not a fair comparison. More importantly, it's not a useful comparison. Their path is theirs. Your path is yours. The only meaningful question is, are you growing? Are you moving forward? Are you becoming more of who you want to be? Breathe slowly and deeply now, feeling your body completely supported, completely at rest. You don't have to compare yourself to anyone. You don't have to measure up to some imagined standard. You just need to keep growing, keep learning, keep moving forward on your own unique path. This is enough. You are enough. Rest in this knowing. Let me tell you about a woman named Hannah who lived in Wellington, New Zealand. Hannah was a journalist who had spent 20 years covering hard news, conflict zones, natural disasters, human suffering. She was good at her job, had won awards for her reporting, but the work had taken a toll. Hannah carried trauma from things she had witnessed. She had nightmares about the war zones she had reported from, the devastation she had seen. She would startle at loud noises. She found it hard to relax, always feeling like she needed to be alert, vigilant, ready for danger. Hannah knew she had symptoms of PTSD, but she felt ashamed to seek help. She was supposed to be tough, professional, able to handle difficult situations. Admitting she was struggling felt like admitting weakness, like admitting she couldn't do her job. So, she pushed through, tried to ignore the symptoms, threw herself into work. But the nightmares got worse. The hypervigilance became exhausting. Her partner, a man named David, finally confronted her. Hannah, you're not okay. You need help. There's no shame in that. You've witnessed things that would traumatize anyone. Reluctantly, Hannah agreed to see a therapist who specialized in trauma. The therapist, a woman named Dr. Sarah Mitchell, used something called trauma-sensitive mindfulness, which integrated Buddhist practices with trauma treatment. In their first session, Dr. Sarah explained the approach. Trauma gets stored in the body, not just the mind. Your nervous system is stuck in a state of high alert because it experienced genuine threats. We need to help your body learn that you're safe now, that the threat has passed. She introduced Hannah to a practice called grounding, using present moment awareness to help her nervous system regulate. When you notice yourself getting triggered, getting pulled back into traumatic memories, we practice grounding in the present moment. You name 5 things you can see right now, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, 1 thing you can taste. This brings your awareness fully into the present, reminds your nervous system that you're here now, safe, not back in the war zone. Hannah was skeptical. That seems too simple. I have complex trauma. How is naming what I can see going to help? Dr. Sarah nodded with understanding. It seems simple, but it's actually rewiring your nervous system. Trauma keeps you stuck in the past, reliving threatening experiences. This practice grounds you firmly in the present, where the threat is no longer active. Hannah tried the practice that night when she woke from a nightmare, heart racing, feeling like she was back in Syria during a bombing. She forced herself to sit up and name what she could see in her bedroom. The lamp on the nightstand, the curtains moving slightly in the breeze, David sleeping peacefully beside her, the familiar shape of their dresser, the door to the bathroom. She named things she could touch, the soft sheets, the cool wood of the nightstand, her own arms, Her racing heart began to slow. She was here, in Wellington, in her safe bedroom, not in a war zone. The threat wasn't present. She was okay right now. Hannah practiced this grounding technique consistently over the following weeks. Every time she felt triggered, every time her nervous system went into high alert, she would ground herself in the present moment. See, touch, hear, smell, taste, here, now, safe. Gradually, the intensity of her symptoms began to decrease. The nightmares didn't stop completely, but they became less frequent, less overwhelming. She could recover from them more quickly instead of being destabilized for days. The hypervigilance softened. She could be in a crowd without feeling constantly on edge. Dr. Sarah explained the Buddhist understanding underlying this practice. The Buddha taught that we suffer when we're not present, when we're lost in the past, reliving trauma, or lost in the future, anticipating threats. We're not actually in contact with reality as it is right now. And right now, in this present moment, you're usually okay. The trauma happened in the past. The feared future hasn't arrived. Right now, as you sit here, breathing, you're safe. This teaching gave Hannah permission to let go of the hypervigilance. Her nervous system had been trying to protect her by staying alert to danger. But the danger had passed. She could tell her body, "Thank you for trying to keep me safe. But I'm safe now. You can rest." Over months of therapy and practice, Hannah began to reclaim her life from trauma. She decided to shift away from covering war zones and disasters, moving into feature writing about resilience and recovery. She wanted to tell stories of how people heal, how communities rebuild, how hope emerges from devastation. This new focus felt more sustainable, more aligned with where she was in her own healing journey. One afternoon, Hannah was interviewing a woman named Mrs. Chen, who had survived a devastating earthquake. Mrs. Chen spoke about how she had learned to live with the trauma rather than be controlled by it. "I will always carry the memory of that day," Mrs. Chen said. "But the memory is not happening now. Right now, I am here, talking with you, drinking tea. I practice coming back to now whenever the past tries to pull me away." Hannah felt a deep recognition. Mrs. Chen was describing the exact practice Hannah had been learning. The earthquake wasn't happening now. The war zones Hannah had covered weren't happening now. The trauma was real, had happened, had left its mark. But it wasn't happening in this present moment. And there was freedom in recognizing that distinction. After the interview, Hannah sat in her car and cried, releasing something she had been holding for years. The belief that she had to stay vigilant, had to keep remembering, had to carry the trauma as if it was still active. She could honor what she had witnessed, could remember without being consumed by memory. She could carry the experience without letting it define her present moment. Years later, Hannah wrote a book about journalists and trauma, about how people who witness suffering for a living need support and healing. In the book, she shared her own story and the Buddhist practices that had helped her recover. Trauma teaches us that the past can feel more real than the present. She wrote, "Buddhist practice teaches us to find our way back to now, where we actually live, where healing is possible, where life continues despite what we've endured." The book helped countless journalists and trauma survivors. Hannah received letters from people telling her that the grounding practice had changed their lives. had given them a way to manage symptoms that had seemed unmanageable. Hannah's story teaches us about one of Buddhism's most practical offerings, the power of present moment awareness. When we're lost in the past, reliving painful experiences, or lost in the future, anticipating threats, we're not actually in contact with reality. Reality exists only now, in this present moment. And in this present moment, you're usually okay. There might be discomfort, there might be challenges, but you're breathing, you're here, you're alive. The practice of coming back to now, again and again, is how we free ourselves from being haunted by past or consumed by future. This is available to you right now. Where is your attention right now? Are you here? Feeling your body resting, hearing these words? Or are you thinking about tomorrow, worrying about the future, replaying the past? There's nothing wrong with planning or remembering, but notice if you're spending most of your time somewhere other than now, because now is where life actually happens. This breath, this moment, this sensation of your body resting, this is real. Everything else is memory or imagination. Coming back to now doesn't erase difficult past experiences or remove future challenges, but it gives you ground to stand on, a place to rest that's not caught in the suffering of past or the anxiety of future. Feel your breath moving gently in and out. Feel the surface supporting your body. Notice any sounds around you. This is now. This is real. You can return here whenever you need refuge from the past or future. Now is always available, always safe, always home. Let me tell you about a man named Patrick who lived in Boston, Massachusetts. Patrick was an architect and a father of 3 children. Patrick loved his kids deeply, wanted the best for them, but he had fallen into a painful pattern. He tried to control everything about their lives. He chose their activities, monitored their homework obsessively, planned their college paths when they were still in middle school. Patrick believed that good parenting meant guiding, directing, protecting his children from making mistakes. But his children, especially his eldest daughter Claire, who was 16, were beginning to rebel against his control. Claire would argue with Patrick constantly about his rules, his expectations, his involvement in every aspect of her life. "Dad, I need space to figure things out myself," she would tell him. "You can't control everything." Patrick would respond, "I'm not trying to control you. I'm trying to help you succeed. I'm trying to keep you from making mistakes that will hurt you." But Claire was right. Patrick was trying to control her, and it was damaging their relationship. She had started lying to him about where she was going, what she was doing, who she was with. Not because she was doing anything terrible, but because she needed some autonomy, some freedom from his constant oversight. Patrick's wife Lauren had been trying to tell him this for months. "You're pushing her away. You need to let go a little. Trust that we've given her good values and judgment. She needs to make her own choices, even if some of them are mistakes." But Patrick was terrified of letting go. What if Claire made a terrible choice? What if she got hurt? What if she ruined her future? He felt like loosening his control meant abandoning his responsibility as a father. One evening, after another explosive argument with Claire that ended with her screaming, "I hate you!" and slamming her bedroom door, Patrick sat in his living room feeling defeated and confused. He loved his daughter. He was trying to be a good father. Why was everything falling apart? Lauren sat down beside him. "Patrick, you need help with this. Your need to control everything is hurting our family. I think you should talk to someone." Patrick felt defensive, but also desperate. He agreed to see a therapist, a man named Dr. James Walsh, who had studied Buddhist psychology. In their first session, Patrick explained his situation. "I just want to protect my kids, guide them toward good choices. I don't understand why that's wrong." Dr. James listened carefully, then asked a simple question. "Patrick, how much control do you actually have over your daughter's life?" Patrick started to answer, then stopped. How much control did he actually have? He could set rules for her behavior in their house, but he couldn't control her thoughts, her feelings, her choices when she was out of his sight. The more he tried to control, the more she pulled away, lying to him, hiding things from him. His attempts at control were actually giving him less influence, not more. "Very little, I guess," Patrick admitted, finally. "Especially now that she's hiding things from me because she feels suffocated." Dr. James nodded. "This is one of life's great paradoxes. The more tightly we try to hold on to something, the more it slips away. Buddhism has a teaching about this. It's about the difference between caring for something and trying to control it." He explained, "You can care deeply about your daughter's well-being without trying to control every aspect of her life. Caring means you provide guidance, support, boundaries when necessary. But you also recognize that she's a separate person with her own path, her own choices, her own lessons to learn. Control is when you believe you can and should determine everything about her life. That's not only impossible, it's damaging to both of you." Patrick felt something crack open inside him. He had conflated caring with controlling. He thought being a good father meant orchestrating his children's lives, protecting them from all mistakes. But Dr. James was suggesting something different. What if your job as a parent is to help your children develop their own judgment, their own decision-making skills, their own ability to navigate life? You can't do that if you're making all their choices for them. They need to practice making decisions, even if some of those decisions lead to mistakes. That's how they learn. Dr. James taught Patrick a practice. When you notice yourself trying to control a situation with your daughter, pause and ask yourself, "Is this actually within my control? If not, can I let it go? Can I trust that she'll learn what she needs to learn, even if the path isn't the one I would choose for her?" This was terrifying for Patrick. Letting go felt like abandoning his children to potential harm. But Dr. James reframed it. Letting go of control isn't abandoning them, it's trusting them. It's trusting that they have inner resources, that they can learn from consequences, that they're capable of more than you're giving them credit for. Patrick began practicing this letting go. When Claire asked if she could go to a party, Patrick's immediate instinct was to say no, to control the situation, to protect her from potential risks. Instead, he paused and asked himself the questions Dr. James had taught him. Is this within my control? Can I actually stop her from going to parties for the rest of her teenage years? Or is this an opportunity for her to practice making decisions? He took a breath and said to Claire, "Tell me about this party. Who's hosting it? Will there be adult supervision? What's your plan for getting home safely?" They had an actual conversation instead of Patrick just issuing rules. Claire explained that it was at her friend Megan's house. Megan's parents would be home, and she planned to get a ride home with Megan's older sister. Patrick noticed his anxiety, his desire to say no just to keep her safe at home. But he practiced letting go of control. Okay, be home by midnight. Text me when you get there and when you're leaving. And if anything feels unsafe or uncomfortable, call me and I'll come get you. No questions asked. Claire looked at him with surprise. Really? You're letting me go? I'm trusting you, Patrick said, and he realized he meant it. You're smart and you have good judgment. I trust you to make good choices. Something shifted between them in that moment. Claire threw her arms around him. Thank you, Dad. I won't let you down. And she didn't. She went to the party, texted him updates, came home on time. She was fine. The world didn't end because Patrick loosened his grip. Over the following months, Patrick practiced this approach with all his children. Instead of controlling every aspect of their lives, he offered guidance when asked, set reasonable boundaries, and trusted them to navigate increasingly complex situations. His relationship with Claire transformed. She stopped lying to him because she didn't need to anymore. She started coming to him for advice because his advice wasn't wrapped in control and judgment. One evening, Claire came to Patrick looking upset. Dad, I need to talk to you about something. Patrick's old instinct was to brace for disaster, to prepare to fix whatever was wrong, to control the situation. Instead, he just listened as Claire explained that she had gotten a C on an important chemistry test. I studied, but I just didn't understand the material. And I'm worried because this could affect my college applications. Patrick felt his controlling instinct activate. He could hire a tutor, could create a study schedule, could manage this situation. But he caught himself. That sounds frustrating. What do you think you need? Claire looked at him thoughtfully. I think I need to meet with my teacher and figure out what I'm not understanding. And maybe get a study group together with some classmates who are doing better in the class. Patrick nodded. That sounds like a good plan. Is there anything I can do to support you with that? Just don't freak out about the C. I'm already disappointed enough. I don't need you to pile on. Patrick pulled her into a hug. I trust you to handle this. You've got a good plan. Let me know if you need anything from me. After Claire left, Patrick realized this was what letting go of control actually looked like. Not abandoning his daughter to struggle alone, but trusting her to identify her needs and solve her own problems, while being available to support her if she asked. Years later, when Claire was applying to colleges, she wrote her application essay about her father learning to let go. My dad used to try to control everything about my life, and I resented him for it, she wrote. But then he learned something that changed our relationship completely. He learned to trust me. He still cared about my well-being, still offered guidance, still set boundaries. But he stopped trying to control every choice I made. He gave me space to make mistakes, learn from consequences, develop my own judgment. This trust was the greatest gift he could have given me, because it helped me learn to trust myself. Patrick cried, reading this essay. He had thought letting go of control meant he was being a less involved father. But Claire experienced it as him finally seeing her as capable, as worthy of trust. The Buddhist teaching about releasing control had saved their relationship and helped his daughter become more confident and independent. Patrick's story teaches us about one of Buddhism's most counterintuitive wisdoms. Holding tightly doesn't keep things safe. It actually pushes them away. Whether we're talking about children, relationships, businesses, our own lives. The tighter we grip, the more we try to control, the more we create suffering and resistance. Buddhism invites us to practice holding lightly, engaging fully, while releasing the need to control outcomes. This doesn't mean we become passive or stop caring. Patrick still cared deeply about his daughter, but he cared without controlling. He engaged without trying to determine every outcome. This is the practice. Can you care about something without making your peace depend on controlling it? Can you engage fully while accepting that much is beyond your control? This is holding lightly, and it's available to you with anything you've been gripping too tightly. Your children, your career, your health, your future. You can care without controlling. You can engage without gripping. You can love without suffocating. This is freedom for you and for what you love. Breathe slowly now, feeling your hands relaxed, open, not gripping anything. Feel how your body knows how to hold lightly. Your breath comes and goes without you controlling it. Your heart beats without you forcing it. Life flows through you without you having to manage every aspect of it. You can trust this flow. You can hold your life lightly, engaging fully while releasing the exhausting need to control everything. Let me tell you about a woman named Rebecca who lived in Toronto, Canada. Rebecca was a nurse who worked in palliative care, caring for people in the final stages of their lives. Rebecca was drawn to this work because she believed in helping people die with dignity, in reducing suffering at the end of life. But after 10 years in palliative care, Rebecca was struggling with something she hadn't anticipated. She had become terrified of death herself. Seeing so much dying, being present for so many final moments, had made her acutely aware of her own mortality in a way that felt overwhelming. Rebecca would lie awake at night, thinking about death, about how one day she would cease to exist, about how everyone she loved would die. These thoughts created intense anxiety. She felt like she was living under a shadow, like death was lurking just around every corner, waiting to claim her. Her husband Michael noticed how anxious she had become. Maybe you need to take a break from palliative care, he suggested. It's taking a toll on you. But Rebecca felt that would be running away from the problem. The problem wasn't her work. The problem was her terror of death itself. Rebecca decided to attend a Buddhist meditation retreat focused on death and impermanence. It seemed counterintuitive to move toward the very thing that terrified her. But something told her this was what she needed. The retreat was led by a Tibetan Buddhist teacher named Lama Yeshe, who had spent decades working with death and dying. On the first evening, Lama Yeshe spoke about how most people in modern Western culture live in denial of death. We hide death away in hospitals and nursing homes. We use euphemisms instead of saying someone died. We treat death as a failure, something that shouldn't happen, something to fight against at all costs. This denial creates enormous suffering because death is inevitable. Everyone you love will die. You will die. Pretending this isn't true doesn't change it. It just means you live in fear of reality. Rebecca felt herself tensing as Lama Yeshe spoke so directly about death. But he continued, in Buddhist traditions, we practice remembering death, meditating on death, contemplating our own mortality. This might sound morbid to Western ears, but the practice isn't about becoming depressed or scared. It's about accepting the truth of impermanence so deeply that it transforms how you live. When you truly accept that death is coming, when you stop fighting with this reality, something unexpected happens. You become more present, more appreciative, more alive. Over the week, Lama Yeshe guided them through various contemplations on death and impermanence. They meditated on the certainty of death, how everyone born will die, how this is guaranteed, not something to be prevented or avoided, but accepted as the nature of being alive. They contemplated the uncertainty of when death would come, not in old age necessarily, not after a long gradual decline, but possibly today, possibly in an hour, possibly while meditating in this very room. They reflected on what would matter at the moment of death, what they would regret, what they would be glad they had done. These contemplations were intense for Rebecca. She wanted to run away, to distract herself, to think about anything other than death. But she stayed with the practice, breathing through the discomfort, allowing herself to feel her fear without being destroyed by it. Gradually, something began to shift. The fear was still present, but underneath it, she found something else, a kind of clarity, a recognition that because death was certain, because time was limited, how she lived right now mattered enormously. She couldn't waste her precious life in fear of losing it. That would be giving death power over her life long before death actually arrived. On the final day of the retreat, Lama Yeshe spoke about how acceptance of death actually enhances life. When you truly accept that you will die, that everyone you love will die, you stop taking moments for granted. This conversation, this sunset, this meal, it becomes precious because you know it's temporary. Impermanence isn't something to be feared. It's what makes everything valuable. If you had forever, nothing would be special. Because time is limited. Every moment is a gift. He paused, then added, "The paradox is that people who accept death most fully tend to be the most vibrantly alive. They're not wasting their precious time in fear or denial. They're living, fully present, because they know this is their one chance." Rebecca drove home from the retreat, feeling fundamentally changed. She hadn't stopped being aware of death. If anything, she was more aware. But the awareness had shifted from terrifying to clarifying. Yes, she would die. Yes, everyone she loved would die. This was true. And because it was true, she wanted to live more fully right now. In the time she had, she wanted to appreciate the moments she still had with Michael, with her patience, with herself. She wanted to stop wasting her precious life worrying about losing it. Back at work, Rebecca found she could be present with her dying patients in a new way. She wasn't afraid of their deaths anymore because she had accepted death as natural, as part of the cycle of life. She could hold their hands, listen to their stories, help them process their fears and regrets without being overwhelmed by her own death anxiety. One of her patients, a man named Mr. Chen, who was dying of cancer, told her one day, "You're different from other nurses. You're not afraid to be here with me. Most people, even healthcare workers, they want to fix or cure or make positive. You just are here. It helps." Rebecca thanked him, feeling tears in her eyes. "I was terrified of death for a long time," she admitted, "but I learned something that changed everything. Death isn't the enemy. Denial of death is the enemy. When I accepted that death is coming for all of us, I stopped being so afraid, and that acceptance helps me be here with you, really here, not running away from reality. Mr. Chen nodded slowly. I wish I had learned that earlier. I spent so much of my life avoiding thinking about death, and now that it's here, I have so many regrets about time I wasted, things I didn't say, experiences I put off for someday. Someday never came. Rebecca held his hand. What would you tell your younger self if you could, Mr. Chen thought for a long moment. I'd tell him that life is short, that the people you love won't be here forever, that you won't be here forever. So love them now. Talk to them now. Do the things that matter now. Don't wait for the perfect moment. There is no perfect moment. There's only now. And then one day there's no more now. These words stayed with Rebecca. She went home that evening and told Michael what Mr. Chen had said. I don't want to wait for someday. I don't want to take our time together for granted. I love you, and I want to make sure you know it. Every day, while we still have days. Michael pulled her close. I love you too, and I'm glad you went to that retreat. You seem more peaceful somehow, still serious about death, but not terrified anymore. Rebecca nodded. I accepted it. I accepted that it's coming, that I can't control when, that everyone I love will die and I will die. And that acceptance freed me to actually live. I'm not spending my energy fighting with reality anymore. I'm spending it being present with what's actually here, right now, while it's still here. Years later, Rebecca trained other healthcare workers in contemplative approaches to end-of-life care. She taught them what Lama Yeshe had taught her, that accepting death doesn't make you morbid or depressed. It makes you present, appreciative, fully alive. When we deny death, when we pretend it's not coming, we live half asleep. She would tell her students, we take moments for granted. We put off important conversations. We waste our precious time on things that don't matter. But when we accept death as part of life, as natural and inevitable, we wake up. We appreciate what we have while we have it. We live more fully because we know our time is limited. Rebecca's story teaches us about one of Buddhism's most profound practices, contemplating death and impermanence. In modern culture, this seems morbid, depressing, something to avoid. But Buddhism teaches that denying death creates more suffering than accepting it. When we live in denial, we take life for granted. We assume we have endless time. We put off important things for someday. We waste our precious moments on trivia. But when we accept death, when we truly take in that our time is limited, everything changes. We become more present. We appreciate what we have. We prioritize what actually matters. We live more fully precisely because we accept that life is temporary. This doesn't mean dwelling on death constantly or becoming depressed. It means remembering, periodically, that you will die, that everyone you love will die, that this day might be your last. Not to create fear, but to create clarity about what matters. If today were your last day, how would you want to live it? What would you regret not having done? What would you be glad you did? These questions aren't morbid. They're clarifying. They cut through the trivial and reveal what's essential. You're lying here right now, breathing, alive. This moment is precious because it's temporary. You won't have infinite moments like this. You have the moments you have, and then one day you won't have any more. This truth isn't meant to scare you. It's meant to wake you up, to help you appreciate this breath, this moment, this life, while you still have it. Let yourself breathe deeply, feeling the preciousness of this breath. You're alive, right now. This is the gift. Not forever, but now, and now is enough. Let me tell you one more story before we move into the deepest rest. This story comes from a man named Lucas who lived in Seattle, Washington. Lucas was a software engineer who had achieved considerable success by age 35. He had a well-paying job at a major tech company, owned a beautiful home, drove a nice car, traveled frequently. By external measures, Lucas had made it. But internally, Lucas felt empty. He would achieve a goal, feel a brief moment of satisfaction, and then immediately start chasing the next thing. Promotion, raise, bigger house, nicer car. There was always something more to want, something more to achieve, and the satisfaction never lasted. Lucas found himself constantly thinking about what was next instead of enjoying what was now. He would be on vacation, thinking about work. He would achieve something he'd been working toward for months and barely pause to appreciate it before setting a new goal. He felt like he was on a treadmill, running constantly but never arriving anywhere. His girlfriend Emma noticed this pattern. "Lucas, when are you going to just be happy with what you have? When is enough going to be enough?" Lucas didn't have an answer. He didn't know how to be satisfied. He had been conditioned his whole life to achieve, to acquire, to want more. Contentment felt like giving up, like settling, like stopping his growth. One weekend, Emma convinced Lucas to attend a meditation retreat with her. Lucas was skeptical but agreed. The teacher was a Buddhist monk named Ajahn Amaro, who spoke about what Buddhism calls the hungry ghost realm. He described beings with huge stomachs and tiny mouths who are always hungry but can never be satisfied. This is a metaphor for how many of us live. We have this huge hunger for more, for better, for different, but we have a tiny capacity for satisfaction. Nothing fills us. We consume experiences, achievements, possessions, relationships, but we're never satisfied. We're always hungry. Lucas felt like Ajahn Amaro was describing him exactly. He was a hungry ghost, consuming success after success, but never feeling satisfied, always reaching for the next thing. Ajahn Amaro continued, "The Buddha taught that this endless craving, this constant wanting more, is one of the root causes of suffering. Not because wanting itself is bad, but because when we make satisfaction depend on getting the next thing, we're setting ourselves up for perpetual dissatisfaction. There's always a next thing. The finish line keeps moving." He paused, then said something that struck Lucas deeply. Contentment isn't about having everything you want. It's about wanting what you have. It's about pausing in this moment and recognizing, I have enough. I am enough. This is enough. This idea was revolutionary to Lucas. He had always believed contentment meant settling for less than he was capable of. But Ajahn Amaro was suggesting something different. Contentment wasn't about lowering your standards or giving up on growth. It was about appreciating what was already present while you continued to move forward. It was about satisfaction being available now, not always deferred until the next achievement. Ajahn Amaro taught them a practice. Each day, take a few moments to practice what Buddhism calls gratitude for sufficiency. Name 3 things that are enough in your life right now. Not perfect, not ideal, but enough. I have enough food. I have enough shelter. I have enough health. This practice trains your mind to notice what's already adequate, already present, already sufficient. Lucas tried this practice that evening during the meditation session. At first, his mind resisted. 3 things that are enough. Everything could be better. His apartment could be bigger. His salary higher. His body fitter. His mind was trained to notice insufficiency. What was lacking? What needed improvement? But he pushed through the resistance and tried to find 3 things that were genuinely enough. My body works. I can walk, see, hear, move. That's enough. I have people who love me. Emma, my family, my friends. That's enough. I have meaningful work that challenges me. That's enough. As he said these things, feeling into their truth, something shifted. He did have enough. Not everything, not perfection, but enough. And in that recognition, there was a kind of peace he hadn't felt in years. Over the following months, Lucas practiced this regularly, each day, finding 3 things that were enough. Gradually, his relationship to wanting changed. He still had goals, still wanted to grow and develop, but the wanting wasn't driven by a sense of insufficiency anymore. He wasn't chasing satisfaction in some future moment. He could feel satisfied now while also working toward things. One afternoon, Lucas received news that he had been passed over for a promotion he had been expecting. His old pattern would have been to spiral into dissatisfaction, to feel like a failure, to immediately start planning his next move. Instead, he practiced his contentment meditation. I have a good job that pays well and challenges me. That's enough. The disappointment was still there. He had wanted the promotion, but underneath the disappointment was something solid. He was okay. He had enough. This setback didn't negate everything he already had. Emma noticed the change in Lucas. You seem more peaceful lately, less restless. Lucas tried to explain what he had learned. I realized I was living in a state of constant craving, always wanting the next thing, never satisfied with what was. It was exhausting, and it meant I was never actually happy because happiness was always one achievement away. Now I'm practicing contentment, appreciating what's already here. I still have goals, but they're not driven by this desperate sense that I'm not enough until I achieve them. Emma smiled. That sounds like wisdom. Lucas laughed. It's ancient wisdom. Apparently, the Buddha figured this out, too, 500 years ago. I'm just catching up. Lucas began to see evidence of the hungry ghost pattern everywhere. Friends who made 6 figures, but constantly complained about money. Colleagues who achieved impressive things, but immediately dismissed them as not impressive enough. People who had everything by objective standards, but felt like they had nothing because they were always focused on what was missing. And he saw that he had been one of those people, always looking at what was next, what was missing, what could be better, never pausing to appreciate what was already present, already good, already enough. One evening, Lucas and Emma were sitting on their balcony watching the sunset. Lucas felt a wave of contentment, of simple appreciation for this moment. Emma, beside him, beautiful colors in the sky, a cool breeze, nothing extraordinary but somehow perfect. This is enough, he said quietly. Emma looked at him with understanding. Yes, it is. They sat in silence. watching the sun disappear below the horizon, practicing together the simple but profound act of being satisfied with what was, right here, right now. Lucas's story teaches us about one of Buddhism's most countercultural insights. Contentment is available now, not after you achieve the next goal. In a culture built on constantly wanting more, on dissatisfaction being the engine of economic growth, this teaching is radical. You don't have to wait until you have everything you want to feel satisfied. You can feel satisfied now with what you have while still working toward goals. This isn't resignation or settling. It's recognizing that peace doesn't come from getting everything you want. It comes from wanting what you have, from appreciating sufficiency, from pausing the endless chase long enough to notice that you already have enough. Think about your own life. What are you constantly reaching for? What achievement or acquisition do you believe will finally make you satisfied? And has this pattern worked so far, or does the finish line keep moving? Satisfaction always deferred to the next thing. What if you could feel content now, with what you have, while still growing and developing? This is available, not by lowering your standards or giving up on growth, but by training your mind to notice sufficiency, to appreciate what's present, to recognize that you have enough. You are enough. This moment is enough. Breathe slowly now, feeling your whole body heavy and relaxed. You don't need more to be okay. You don't need to achieve one more thing to deserve peace. Right now, as you are, with what you have, you are enough. Let this truth settle into you. Feel how your body relaxes when you stop reaching for more. Stop fighting with what is. Stop demanding that this moment be different. You can rest in sufficiency, in enoughness, in the simple peace of being satisfied with what's present. Let me share another story that reveals Buddhist wisdom about forgiveness and letting go. In a small town in Ireland, there lived a woman named Fiona who had been carrying a grudge for 15 years. Her sister Maeve had borrowed a significant amount of money from Fiona when their mother was ill, promising to pay it back within a year. But Maeve never paid it back. She made excuses, said she was struggling financially, promised it would be soon. Eventually, she stopped bringing it up altogether, and the unspoken debt sat between them like a wall. Fiona had tried to let it go, but every family gathering, every holiday, every time she saw Maeve, the resentment would flare up. Maeve got to just forget about it, move on with her life, while Fiona carried the anger and hurt. It felt unfair that Fiona was the one suffering, while Maeve seemed unbothered. The grudge had poisoned their relationship. They barely spoke anymore. Family events were tense and uncomfortable. Other family members had stopped inviting them both to the same gatherings because the tension was so palpable. Fiona knew, intellectually, that holding onto this grudge was hurting her more than it was hurting Maeve. But she couldn't seem to let it go. Letting go felt like saying what Maeve did was okay, like letting her get away with it. Fiona's best friend Siobhan finally confronted her. Fiona, this grudge is eating you alive. It's been 15 years. You've lost your sister over money. Is that really what you want? Fiona felt defensive. She stole from me. She lied to me. Why should I just let that go? Siobhan sighed. Because holding on to it is destroying you. Not her. You. She's moved on with her life. You're the one still suffering. These words stung because they were true. Maeve did seem to have moved on. She had remarried, had a new baby, seemed happy from what Fiona could see on social media. Meanwhile, Fiona was still bitter, still angry, still replaying the betrayal in her mind. Siobhan suggested Fiona talk to a priest at their church who also studied Buddhism. Father Michael had an unusual approach to spiritual counseling, integrating Buddhist wisdom with Christian teaching. When Fiona explained her situation, Father Michael listened thoughtfully, then asked her a question. "Fiona, why are you still punishing yourself?" Fiona was confused. "I'm not punishing myself. I'm angry at Maeve for what she did." Father Michael nodded. "Yes, you're angry at Maeve. But who's suffering from that anger? Who's carrying the weight of this grudge? Who's lost sleep over it? To lost the relationship with her sister? Spent 15 years in bitterness?" Fiona felt tears forming. "I'm the one suffering." "Exactly," Father Michael said gently. "The Buddha taught that holding on to anger is like holding a hot coal, intending to throw it at someone else. You're the one getting burned. Maeve might feel guilty, might have her own suffering about what she did. But your anger doesn't actually hurt her. It hurts you," he continued. "Forgiveness isn't about saying what someone did was okay. It's not about letting them off the hook or pretending you weren't hurt. Forgiveness is about releasing yourself from the prison of resentment. It's about saying, what happened, happened. I was hurt, and I'm choosing to let go of carrying this hurt, because carrying it is hurting me more than the original betrayal did." This reframing shocked Fiona. She had always thought forgiveness was about the other person. But Father Michael was saying forgiveness was primarily for her own freedom, her own peace. "But how do I forgive when I'm still angry?" Fiona asked. "Won't it be fake forgiveness if I don't feel it?" Father Michael smiled. "Forgiveness isn't a feeling you wait for. It's a decision you make, over and over, until eventually the feelings catch up with the decision. You practice forgiveness. Each time the resentment arises, you practice releasing it. I'm choosing to let this go. I'm choosing my peace over this grudge." Fiona began practicing this. It was hard. The resentment had become such a familiar companion that letting it go felt strange, almost like losing a part of herself. But each time she noticed herself ruminating about Maeve's betrayal, she would pause and say, "I'm choosing to let this go. I'm choosing my peace." At first, it felt like a lie. She didn't want to let it go. She wanted Maeve to suffer the way she had suffered. But she kept practicing, kept choosing peace over resentment, kept releasing the hot coal she had been holding for 15 years. Gradually, something began to shift. The resentment lost its grip. She could think about Maeve without the immediate surge of anger. She could see photos of Maeve's family without bitterness. The grudge was dissolving, not because Maeve had apologized or paid her back, but because Fiona had stopped feeding it with her attention and energy. 6 months into this practice, Fiona saw Maeve at their nephew's wedding. Normally, Fiona would have avoided her, created distance, stayed tense and guarded. But this time, Fiona approached Maeve. "Can we talk?" They went outside, away from the celebration. Fiona took a deep breath. "I've been carrying anger about the money you borrowed for 15 years. It's destroyed our relationship. And I've realized that carrying this anger has hurt me far more than the money ever did. So, I'm letting it go. I'm forgiving you. Not because what you did was okay, but because I need to be free from this." Maeve's eyes filled with tears. "Fiona, I'm so sorry. I know I hurt you." I know I should have paid you back. Things were so difficult financially. And then time passed, and I felt so ashamed that I didn't know how to bring it up. I've carried guilt about this for years. Fiona felt something soften in her chest. She had imagined Maeve as completely unbothered, uncaring about the debt. But here, Maeve was, carrying her own suffering about it. The money doesn't matter anymore, Fiona said, surprising herself with the truth of it. What matters is that we're sisters. I don't want to lose you over this. They hugged, both crying, releasing 15 years of tension and separation. Walking back into the wedding, Fiona felt lighter than she had in years. The burden of resentment had been so heavy, so constant, that she had forgotten what it felt like to not carry it. She had her sister back. More importantly, she had herself back, freed from the prison of her own grudge. Later that night, Fiona called Father Michael. I forgave her. And you were right, it wasn't about her. It was about me. I feel like I've been released from something that was slowly killing me. Father Michael's voice was warm. That's the gift of forgiveness. Not that it changes the past or makes the wrong right, but that it frees you to live fully in the present instead of being chained to old pain. He paused, then added, The Buddha taught that holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. You stop drinking the poison. Now you can heal. Fiona's story teaches us about one of Buddhism's most liberating practices, forgiveness as a path to your own freedom. We often think forgiveness is about the other person, about letting them off the hook, about saying what they did was acceptable. But Buddhist forgiveness is primarily about releasing yourself from the suffering of holding grudges. When you hold on to resentment, anger, bitterness, you're the one carrying that weight. The person you're angry at might feel guilty, might suffer in their own way. But your anger doesn't actually hurt them the way it hurts you. You're the one replaying the betrayal, feeding the grudge, carrying the hot coal. Forgiveness isn't about pretending you weren't hurt or that what happened was okay. It's about recognizing that carrying the hurt forward is a choice. And it's a choice that creates ongoing suffering. You can acknowledge the hurt, honor your feelings, and still choose to release the grudge. This release isn't weakness. It's strength. It takes courage to let go of familiar resentment, to stop feeding old anger, to choose peace over the satisfaction of staying mad. But this courage gives you back your life, gives you back your energy, gives you back your peace. Think about grudges you might be carrying, old betrayals, unresolved conflicts, people who hurt you years ago, but who you're still angry at today. Notice how much energy goes into maintaining these grudges. Notice how thinking about these old hurts makes you feel in your body. Tense, contracted, heavy. This is the poison you're drinking, hoping it will hurt someone else. You can choose to put it down, not because the other person deserves forgiveness, but because you deserve freedom. You deserve to stop carrying this weight. You deserve peace. Breathe deeply now, feeling your body release tension with each exhale. Feel how your body wants to let go, wants to release what doesn't serve you. Your body knows how to forgive, how to release, how to heal. You can trust this natural process. Breathe out resentment. Breathe in peace. Breathe out old grudges. Breathe in freedom. With each breath, letting go a little more, releasing what you've been holding, choosing your peace over old pain. We've journeyed through so many teachings tonight, through stories of acceptance and letting go, of compassion and boundaries, of present moment awareness and releasing control, of facing death and finding contentment, of forgiveness and freedom. Each story, each person, discovering the same essential truth. Peace doesn't come from perfect circumstances. It comes from how we relate to our circumstances, from accepting what is, releasing what we can't control, being present with what's actually here, finding sufficiency in enough, forgiving to free ourselves, living fully because time is limited. These aren't just nice ideas or abstract philosophies. They're practical teachings that transform how you experience life. When you practice acceptance instead of resistance, compassion without drowning, presence instead of constant mental time travel, contentment instead of endless craving, forgiveness instead of grudge holding, your suffering decreases, not because your life becomes perfect, but because you stop creating unnecessary suffering through how you relate to life's inevitable difficulties. Feel yourself sinking even deeper now into rest, into peace, into acceptance of this moment exactly as it is. Your body is so heavy, so relaxed, so ready for the deep sleep that restores and renews you. Your mind is quieting, thoughts becoming fewer, less important, drifting away like clouds. You don't have to hold on to anything right now. You can release all the day's concerns, all your worries about tomorrow, all the grudges and resentments you've been carrying. Just let it all go. Let yourself be held by this moment, by this breath, by the peaceful awareness that's always here beneath everything else. Buddhism teaches that beneath all the thoughts, all the emotions, all the stories and struggles, there's a fundamental peace. Not peace that you have to create or achieve, but peace that's already present. Like the sky behind the clouds of worry, fear, anger, craving. They pass through, they come and go. But the sky of awareness, the peace of simply being, this is constant. This is always available. And you can rest in this now. Not trying to make anything happen, not trying to fix or change or improve anything. Just resting in the simple awareness that notices everything, holds everything, accepts everything. Let me tell you about a man named Andrew who lived in Brisbane, Australia. Andrew was a high school science teacher who prided himself on being logical, rational, and evidence-based in his thinking. He had little patience for what he considered woo-woo spiritual ideas or emotional reasoning. Andrew believed that problems could be solved through logic and analysis, that feelings were less important than facts, that rational thinking was superior to emotional intuition. This approach served him well in his professional life. He was an excellent teacher, able to break down complex scientific concepts into clear, logical explanations. But Andrew's rational approach was creating problems in his personal life, particularly in his marriage to his wife Victoria. Victoria was an artist, someone who lived through feelings and intuition. She made decisions based on what felt right, trusted her gut, valued emotional connection over logical analysis. Andrew would often dismiss her feelings as irrational. When Victoria said she felt uncomfortable about a decision, Andrew would respond with, "But that doesn't make logical sense. Here are the facts." When she wanted to talk about her emotions, Andrew would try to solve the problems logically rather than simply listening and validating her feelings. This pattern had been creating distance between them for years. Victoria felt unheard, dismissed, like her way of experiencing the world was considered inferior to Andrew's rational approach. Andrew felt frustrated that Victoria wouldn't just look at situations logically, wouldn't make decisions based on evidence and reason. They were speaking different languages, and neither felt understood by the other. One evening, after another argument where Andrew had tried to logic away Victoria's feelings, she said something that stopped him cold. "Andrew, not everything can be understood through logic. Some things have to be felt. And when you dismiss my feelings as irrational, you're dismissing me. You're saying my way of knowing isn't valid." Andrew wanted to argue, to explain why rational thinking was more reliable than feelings. But something in Victoria's face, the pain there, made him pause. He realized their marriage was suffering because of his insistence that his way of understanding the world was the only valid way. Victoria suggested they try couples therapy. Andrew agreed, though he was skeptical that talking about feelings would solve anything. Their therapist was a woman named Dr. Helen Carter, who had studied both Western psychology and Buddhist philosophy. In their first session, she listened to both of them describe their conflict. Then she said something that caught Andrew's attention. "You're both right, and you're both incomplete," she explained. "Andrew, you value thinking, logic, rational analysis. These are incredibly important capacities. Victoria, you value feeling, intuition, emotional knowing. These are equally important capacities. The problem isn't that one of you is right and one is wrong. The problem is that you're each operating with only half of what makes us human." Buddhism teaches about integrating head and heart, thinking and feeling, logic and intuition. You need both. Dr. Helen continued. "Andrew, your rational mind is powerful, but it has limitations. There are aspects of human experience that can't be captured by logic alone. Love, beauty, meaning, connection. These aren't primarily rational experiences. They're felt experiences. When you try to logic them away, you're missing something essential." Andrew felt defensive, but feelings aren't reliable. People make terrible decisions based on feelings all the time. Logic is more trustworthy. Dr. Helen nodded. "Sometimes that's true. People can make poor decisions based on unexamined emotions. But people also make poor decisions based on logic that doesn't account for human factors, emotional realities, intuitive knowing. The wisest approach integrates both. You think and you feel. You analyze and you intuit. You use your head and your heart." She gave them an exercise. "Andrew, this week, when Victoria shares a feeling, I want you to practice just listening and validating without trying to fix or analyze. Don't try to solve the problem logically. Just say something like, 'That sounds really difficult,' or 'I can understand why you'd feel that way.' Victoria, when Andrew shares an analysis or logical perspective, I want you to practice acknowledging its value without dismissing it as cold or unfeeling. Say something like, 'That's a helpful way to think about it,' or 'I appreciate that perspective.'" This exercise was incredibly hard for Andrew. When Victoria would share feelings, his immediate instinct was to analyze, to problem solve, to bring logic to bear. But he practiced just listening, just validating. "That sounds frustrating. I can see why that would hurt." He felt awkward, almost helpless, not offering solutions or analysis. But something unexpected happened. Victoria started opening up more. She felt heard in a way she hadn't in years. And the more she felt heard, the more connected she felt to Andrew, the more willing she was to consider his logical perspectives when they were making decisions together. Andrew began to see that his insistence on logic over feeling had been a form of control. By dismissing feelings as irrational, he got to be the arbiter of what was valid, what was real, what deserved attention. But Dr. Helen helped him see that this was a limited, even arrogant, way of understanding reality. The Buddha talked about the middle way. Andrew, not just thinking, not just feeling, but both, integrated. You're a brilliant thinker, but you've been using thinking as a defense against feeling. Feeling is vulnerable. It's messy. It's harder to control than thinking. So you've prioritized thinking and dismissed feeling. But this has cut you off from half of your own experience and from your wife. This observation hit Andrew hard. He realized Dr. Helen was right. He had been using rationality as armor, as a way to stay in control, to avoid the vulnerability of feeling. If he could logic everything away, he didn't have to feel hurt, fear, uncertainty, all the messy emotions that came with being human. But this armor had isolated him from Victoria and from his own deeper experience. Andrew began practicing what Dr. Helen called dropping from head to heart. When he noticed himself going into analytical mode, especially in emotional situations, he would pause and ask himself, "What am I feeling right now?" This was surprisingly difficult. He had spent so long bypassing feelings that he often didn't know what he felt. Dr. Helen taught him to check in with his body. Feelings live in the body. Andrew, when you're trying to identify what you feel, notice sensations. Tightness in your chest might be anxiety. Warmth might be affection. Heaviness might be sadness. Your body knows what you're feeling even when your mind doesn't. Andrew started practicing this body awareness. One evening, Victoria told him she was worried about her mother's health. Andrew's automatic response started to form. Let's look at the facts. What did the doctor say? What's the actual prognosis? But he caught himself. He paused and dropped into his body. What was he feeling? There was tightness in his chest. Fear. He was scared about Victoria's mother too. And he was scared of Victoria's fear, which was why he wanted to logic it away. Instead of analyzing, Andrew said, "I'm scared too. I love your mum. This is really frightening." Victoria's eyes filled with tears, and she moved closer to him. "Thank you. That's what I needed. Not solutions or analysis. Just to know you're in this with me." They held each other, both feeling the fear, both present with the uncertainty. And Andrew realized something profound. This moment of shared vulnerability, of simply being present with difficult feelings together, created more connection than all his logical problem-solving ever had. He had thought protecting Victoria from feelings was loving her, but actually being present with feelings together, that was true intimacy. Over months of therapy and practice, Andrew learned to integrate thinking and feeling, head and heart. He didn't stop being analytical. His rational mind was still a gift, still valuable, but he learned to also access his emotional knowing, his intuitive sense, his felt experience. He became, in Dr. Helen's words, a complete human being rather than a thinking machine. One afternoon, Andrew was teaching a class about evolution. He was presenting the logical evidence, the scientific data, the rational case for natural selection. But then he paused and said something he never would have said before. But you know what still amazes me? The sheer beauty of it, the elegance. When I look at how perfectly organisms adapt to their environments, I feel awe, not just intellectual appreciation, but actual wonder and awe. Science isn't just about logic and evidence. It's also about this feeling of connection to something vast and beautiful. His students seemed to light up at this. One student raised her hand. "Mr. Andrew, that's the first time I've heard you talk about feelings in science class. It makes it feel more real somehow. Like science isn't just facts, but also about wonder and beauty." Andrew realized his students needed both too. The logic and the feeling, the analysis and the awe, the thinking and the heart. He had been teaching them half of science by focusing only on the rational aspect. Victoria noticed the change in Andrew. "You're different," she said one evening, softer somehow, more present, more human. Andrew laughed. "I spent years thinking that being rational made me superior, but I was just incomplete. I'm learning to be whole, to think and to feel, to analyze and to connect, to use my head and my heart." Years later, Andrew and Victoria renewed their vows on their 20th wedding anniversary. In his vows, Andrew said, "Victoria, you taught me that there are ways of knowing that transcend logic. You taught me that love isn't a problem to be solved, but an experience to be felt. You taught me that I had a heart, not just a brain. Thank you for your patience as I learned to be a complete human being." Victoria cried, and so did Andrew, not because it was sad, but because it was beautiful, meaningful, true. And Andrew didn't try to logic away the tears. He let himself feel them, let them be what they were, an expression of love, of gratitude, of connection. His heart and his head finally integrated, finally whole. Andrew's story teaches us about one of Buddhism's fundamental insights. Wisdom requires integrating thinking and feeling, analysis and intuition, head and heart. In Buddhism, this is sometimes called the union of wisdom and compassion. Wisdom alone can become cold, detached, even cruel. Compassion alone can become sentimental, enabling, ungrounded. But when you integrate them, when you bring both rational understanding and emotional presence to situations, you respond with true wisdom. This integration isn't easy, especially if you've been conditioned to favor one over the other. If you're like Andrew, favoring thinking over feeling, you need to practice dropping into your body, noticing emotions, allowing vulnerability. If you're like Victoria, favoring feeling over thinking, you need to practice stepping back, analyzing, using logic alongside intuition. But the goal isn't to become someone else. It's to become more complete, more whole, more able to access all of your human capacities. You have a brilliant rational mind. Use it. You also have deep emotional wisdom. Access it. You can analyze situations clearly and feel them deeply. You can think and you can feel. This integration is what makes us fully human, fully alive, fully capable of navigating life's complexity with both clarity and compassion. Breathe slowly now, feeling this integration happening naturally in your body. Your breath doesn't choose between thinking and feeling. It simply flows, integrating everything. Your heart beats with both intelligence and feeling. Your body knows how to be whole, how to integrate all aspects of your experience. You can trust this natural wisdom, this natural integration. Rest in the wholeness that you are. Let me tell you about a woman named Jessica who lived in a small town in Nova Scotia, Canada. Jessica was a family doctor who took her work very seriously. She believed that good medicine meant always being available, always putting patients first, always going above and beyond. Jessica would work 12-hour days, take calls at night, respond to patient emails on weekends. She prided herself on her dedication, on never saying no when a patient needed her. But this dedication was coming at a cost. Jessica was exhausted. She had no time for exercise, barely saw her friends, rarely spent quality time with her husband Mark and their 2 young children. She was irritable, constantly tired, running on stress and coffee. Mark tried to talk to her about it. Jess, you can't sustain this pace. You're burning out. You need to set some boundaries. Take care of yourself. But Jessica felt guilty even thinking about boundaries. These are people's lives. I can't just say no because I'm tired. That would be selfish. Mark shook his head. It's not selfish to have limits. You're human. You need rest. You need time with your family. You need a life outside of work. But Jessica couldn't hear this. She had been taught from medical school onward that good doctors sacrifice themselves for their patients. Setting boundaries felt like failing her calling, like being a bad doctor. One morning, Jessica was driving to the clinic after being up most of the night with a patient emergency. She was so tired she could barely keep her eyes open. At a red light, she closed her eyes for just a moment and didn't notice when the light turned green. The car behind her honked, startling her. She realized with horror that she had dozed off at the wheel. She could have caused an accident. She could have hurt someone. This terrified her. That evening, still shaken from the near accident, Jessica finally admitted to Mark that something had to change. I almost fell asleep driving today. I'm so exhausted, I'm becoming dangerous. But I don't know how to do my job without giving everything I have. Mark suggested she talk to Dr. Patricia, an older doctor in their community who had practiced for 40 years and still seemed balanced and healthy. Jessica made an appointment to meet with Dr. Patricia for coffee. When Jessica explained her situation, Dr. Patricia listened with understanding. I used to be exactly like you. Worked myself to exhaustion. I thought boundaries were selfish. Couldn't say no. Then I had a heart attack at age 45. My body said no for me. Jessica was shocked. Dr. Patricia seemed so healthy now. What changed? Dr. Patricia smiled. I learned something from a Buddhist teacher during my recovery. She taught me about what Buddhism calls the oxygen mask principle. You know how on airplanes they tell you to put your own oxygen mask on before helping others? That's not selfishness. That's wisdom. If you pass out from lack of oxygen, you can't help anyone. If you burn out from lack of self-care, you can't help your patients. She continued, Jessica, you think that sacrificing your well-being makes you a better doctor, but actually, it makes you a worse doctor. When you're exhausted, you make mistakes. When you're depleted, you're less present with patients. When you have no life outside work, you lose perspective. Taking care of yourself isn't selfish. It's the foundation of being able to care for others sustainably. Dr. Patricia explained that she had completely restructured her practice after her heart attack. She worked reasonable hours, took regular time off, had clear boundaries about when she was available. And you know what? My patients are fine. Actually, they're better because I'm better. I'm more present, more thoughtful, less likely to make mistakes from exhaustion. Jessica felt something shift as she listened. She had never thought about self-care as making her a better doctor. She had seen it as competing with patient care. But Dr. Patricia was suggesting they were interconnected. How do you deal with the guilt? Jessica asked. When a patient needs something and you're not available? Dr. Patricia nodded. That was the hardest part. But I had to accept that I can't be everything to everyone. I'm one person with limited energy. When I try to be available all the time, I end up depleted and less helpful to everyone. When I set clear boundaries and take care of myself, I can be fully present during the hours I do work. She taught Jessica a practice she had learned from Buddhism, beginning each day by acknowledging her limits with compassion rather than judgment. I am a human being with finite energy. I cannot do everything. I will do what I can with the energy I have, and that is enough. This was revolutionary for Jessica, who had spent years pushing past her limits, treating her body's signals of exhaustion as obstacles to overcome, rather than as important information to heed. Jessica started making changes. She hired another doctor to share call responsibilities. She set clear work hours and stuck to them, except for true emergencies. She stopped responding to patient emails on evenings and weekends, instead setting up an auto-reply, directing urgent matters to the on-call service. She started exercising again, having dinner with her family most nights, seeing friends on weekends. At first, the guilt was intense. Every time she said no to a patient request because she was off duty, every time she left the clinic at her scheduled time, even though there was more work she could do, she felt like she was failing. But Dr. Patricia had warned her about this. The guilt is your old conditioning talking. It's saying that your worth depends on sacrificing yourself. But that's not true. Your worth is inherent, and your ability to help people actually increases when you take care of yourself. Jessica practiced sitting with the guilt without acting on it. She would feel guilty about leaving work on time, but she would leave anyway. She would feel guilty about not being available on weekends, but she maintained her boundaries anyway. Gradually, something unexpected happened. The guilt decreased, and she noticed she was actually a better doctor. When she was working, she was truly present. She wasn't distracted by exhaustion or counting down until she could rest. She had mental energy to think clearly about complex cases. She was more patient with difficult patients because she wasn't already at her limit. Her diagnostic accuracy improved because she wasn't making decisions while depleted. Her children noticed the change immediately. "Mommy, you're home for dinner," her 6-year-old daughter, Emma, exclaimed the first week. Jessica implemented her new schedule. "And you're not on your phone." Jessica felt a pang of guilt at how noteworthy this was to her daughter. How long had she been physically present, but mentally absent? Always half focused on work, even when home? That evening, sitting at dinner with her family, fully present for the first time in months, Jessica felt something she hadn't felt in years: joy. Simple joy at being with her husband and children, listening to their stories about their day, laughing at Emma's jokes. This was what she had been missing while sacrificing herself on the altar of medical dedication. Her life, her family, her own well-being. Mark reached over and squeezed her hand. "Welcome back," he said quietly. Jessica squeezed back, tears in her eyes. I didn't realize how far away I'd gone. 3 months into her new approach, Jessica had a revealing experience. One of her long-time patients, Mrs. Thompson, came in for an appointment. Mrs. Thompson had been seeing Jessica for years and had often called after hours with non-urgent concerns. Jessica had always taken the calls because she didn't want Mrs. Thompson to feel abandoned. But with her new boundaries, Jessica was no longer available after hours, except through the on-call service. Mrs. Thompson brought this up. "Dr. Jessica, I called you last week about my knee pain and got a message saying you weren't available. I was surprised. You've always been there when I needed you." Jessica took a breath, practiced the response she had prepared for this conversation. "Mrs. Thompson, I've made some changes to take better care of myself so I can be a better doctor for you and all my patients. I'm no longer available after hours except for true emergencies. But there's always an on-call doctor who can help you. During my regular work hours, I'm fully present and available. I hope you can understand that this change helps me provide better care." Mrs. Thompson was quiet for a moment, then surprised Jessica by saying, "Actually, that makes sense. I've noticed you seem less stressed lately, more like yourself. I'd rather have you healthy and available during regular hours than burned out and available all the time." Jessica felt such relief. She had imagined her patients would be angry about her boundaries, would see her as abandoning them. But Mrs. Thompson's response showed her that patients could understand, could even appreciate that their doctor was taking care of herself. After Mrs. Thompson left, Jessica sat in her office and cried. Tears of relief, of release, of recognition that she had been carrying an impossible burden that no one had actually required of her. She had been the one demanding that she sacrifice everything. Her patients just wanted good care, which she could provide better when she wasn't depleted. A year into her new approach, Jessica attended a medical conference where she was asked to speak on a panel about physician burnout. She shared her story, how she had nearly destroyed herself trying to be the perfect, always available doctor, how she had learned that self-care wasn't selfish, but necessary, how her patients were actually better served by her having boundaries and taking care of herself. After the panel, dozens of doctors approached her, many in tears. "I needed to hear this." A young doctor told her, "I've been feeling like a failure because I can't keep up with the demands." "But you're saying it's okay to have limits?" Jessica took the young doctor's hands. "It's not just okay to have limits. It's necessary. You're human. You have finite energy. Pretending you don't have limits doesn't make you superhuman. It just makes you headed for burnout or worse." She shared what Dr. Patricia had taught her. Put your own oxygen mask on first. Not because you're selfish, but because you can't help anyone if you're passed out from lack of oxygen. Your well-being is the foundation of your ability to care for others. Jessica's story teaches us about one of Buddhism's most practical wisdoms. Self-care is not selfish. In Buddhism, this is understood through the teaching of skillful compassion. True compassion includes yourself. If you're sacrificing your well-being to help others, you're actually practicing unsustainable compassion that will eventually lead to burnout, resentment, or collapse. Sustainable compassion recognizes that you're part of the system. Your well-being matters. Your needs are valid. Your limits are real. Taking care of yourself isn't selfish. It's the foundation of being able to care for others over the long term. This applies to caregivers, parents, teachers, healthcare workers, anyone in a helping profession. But it also applies to all of us in our relationships, our families, our communities. You cannot pour from an empty cup. You cannot give what you don't have. If you're depleted, exhausted, running on empty, you have nothing sustainable to offer others. But when you take care of yourself, when you honor your needs and limits, when you maintain your own well-being, you can offer genuine, sustainable support to others from a place of fullness rather than depletion. Think about where you might be giving too much, sacrificing too much, neglecting your own well-being in service of others. This might feel noble, might feel like love or dedication or responsibility, but if you're honest, is it sustainable? Can you keep this up indefinitely without breaking? If not, then you need to practice what Jessica learned, setting boundaries, honoring your limits, taking care of yourself so you can sustainably care for others. This isn't selfish, it's wisdom. It's compassion that includes yourself in the circle of care. Breathe deeply now, feeling how your body naturally knows about limits. Your lungs have a limit to how much air they can hold. When they're full, you exhale. This isn't failure. It's natural rhythm, natural limits. Your body doesn't apologize for needing to exhale, for needing rest, for having limits. You can learn from this wisdom. You can honor your own natural limits without guilt, without apology, with simple acceptance that you're human and humans have limits. This wisdom about honoring your limits and returning to joy applies not just to caregivers and doctors, but to anyone who has lost touch with why they started something in the first place. In Manchester, England, a writer named Benjamin was discovering this truth in an unexpected way. Benjamin had published 3 novels, each one more successful than the last. He had achieved what many writers dream of: critical acclaim, commercial success, a devoted readership. But success had brought an unexpected burden. He was now terrified of his next book. His publisher expected another bestseller. His readers expected him to match or exceed his previous work. Every time he sat down to write, he would freeze. What if this book wasn't good enough? What if he disappointed everyone? What if his previous success was just luck, and now everyone would discover he was a fraud? This fear had paralyzed him for months. He would sit at his desk for hours, staring at a blank screen, unable to write a single word. His partner Claire watched him torture himself daily. "Ben, you're making yourself miserable. You used to love writing. Now you're treating it like a prison sentence." Benjamin knew she was right, but he didn't know how to break free from the fear. Claire suggested he take a break and attend a writing retreat in the countryside. Benjamin was reluctant. A retreat felt like admitting defeat. But Claire persisted. "Maybe you need to remember why you started writing in the first place." He finally agreed. More to stop disappointing her than because he believed it would help. The retreat was led by a novelist named Margaret, who had published 20 books over 30 years. On the first evening, she spoke to the small group gathered. "I want to talk about something that plagues many writers: especially after success. We start writing for the wrong reasons. We write to meet expectations, to please readers, to maintain our reputation. And when we write from that place, from fear and pressure, the joy disappears. The words don't flow. Benjamin felt like she was speaking directly to him. Margaret continued, Buddhism has a teaching about what they call beginner's mind. It's the mind that approaches something fresh, curious, without preconceptions. When you first started writing, you had beginner's mind. You wrote because you loved it, because you were curious about the story. You weren't worried about whether it would be good enough. You just wrote. She paused, looking at each person. This week, I invite you to return to beginner's mind. Write as if you've never written before. Write as if no one will ever read it. Write for the pure joy of putting words on paper. That night, Margaret gave them an exercise. Write something you have no intention of ever publishing. Something just for you, with no pressure attached. Benjamin sat with his notebook, feeling the familiar anxiety rising. But then he remembered Margaret's words. Write as if no one will ever read it. He took a breath and started writing about something completely different from the novel he was supposed to be working on. He wrote a silly story about a dog who thought he was a cat. He wrote without caring if it was good, without worrying about literary merit. He just played with words, and something magical happened. The words flowed, not perfect words, not brilliant prose, but words, ideas, story. He filled page after page, laughing at his own silly story, delighting in the freedom of writing without pressure. When he finally put down his pen, hours had passed. He felt more energized than he had in months. This was what writing used to feel like before success had made it terrifying. Over the week, Margaret taught them about how attachment to outcomes kills creativity. When you're attached to your writing being brilliant, being successful, being praised, you can't actually write. You're too busy judging every word as it comes out, comparing it to some imaginary perfect version. This self-consciousness is creative death. She explained that Buddhism teaches about non-attachment, not as not caring, but as caring without clinging to specific outcomes. You care deeply about your writing. You bring your full effort and skill to it, but you release attachment to how it will be received, whether it will succeed, what people will think. This was a revelation for Benjamin. He had thought that caring about his writing meant being attached to it, being successful, being praised, living up to expectations. But Margaret was suggesting something different. Write the best book you can write, for the love of writing, for the story that wants to be told. Then release it into the world without clinging to specific outcomes. Your job is to write. The world's response is not in your control. On the last day of the retreat, Margaret asked each writer to share something they had learned. When it was Benjamin's turn, he said, I came here unable to write a single word of my next novel. I was paralyzed by fear of not being good enough. But this week, I remembered why I started writing, not for success or acclaim or meeting expectations. I started writing because I love stories, love language, love the creative act itself. I got so focused on the outcome that I forgot the joy of the process. He returned home from the retreat with a completely different relationship to his writing. He stopped thinking about his publisher's expectations or his readers' demands. Each morning, he would sit down and ask himself, what wants to be written today. Not, what should I write to be successful, but what story is alive in me right now. He wrote with beginner's mind, curious and playful, allowing himself to discover the story rather than forcing it to be brilliant. Some days, the writing flowed easily. Other days it was difficult. But Benjamin no longer saw difficult days as evidence that he was a failure or that the book would be terrible. He just saw them as part of the process, part of the natural rhythm of creative work. He had released his attachment to every word being perfect, every sentence being brilliant. He was just writing, just creating, just showing up to the work he loved. 6 months later, Benjamin finished his 4th novel. When he sent it to his publisher, he felt peaceful rather than anxious. He had written the best book he could write, from a place of love and creative joy rather than from fear and pressure. Whatever happened next was beyond his control. The book could succeed or fail, be praised or criticized. That wasn't his business anymore. His business was the writing itself, the creative process, the joy of making something. The book was published and received enthusiastically. Critics praised it as his best work yet. Readers loved it. It became his biggest bestseller. But what struck Benjamin was that the success felt different this time. He appreciated it, enjoyed it, but he wasn't attached to it the way he had been with his previous books. His worth as a writer, his joy in writing, these didn't depend on the book's success. They came from the creative process itself, from showing up each day with beginner's mind, from writing for the love of writing. At a book signing, a young writer asked Benjamin, "How do you deal with the pressure of success? How do you write when everyone has expectations?" Benjamin thought about Margaret's teaching, about everything he had learned. "I had to learn to write for the right reasons, not for success or praise or meeting expectations, but for the love of the craft itself." When you write from that place, when you approach your work with what Buddhists call beginner's mind, the pressure disappears. You're not trying to be brilliant or meet some standard. You're just writing, just creating, just showing up to something you love. The young writer nodded, clearly moved by this answer. Benjamin recognized himself in this writer's face, the anxiety and pressure of trying to be good enough. He added, "The paradox is that when you stop trying to be brilliant and just write for the love of it, that's when your best work comes. When you release attachment to outcomes and just show up to the process, that's when you're actually free to create something genuine." This insight that Benjamin discovered returning to beginner's mind, releasing attachment to outcomes, finding joy in the process itself, connects to something fundamental about living well. Across all these stories tonight, from Sarah, the social worker, learning to care without drowning, to Thomas, the musician, accepting his limitations, to Margaret and Oliver, finding peace through acceptance, to Kevin, releasing comparison, to Hannah, grounding herself in the present, to Jessica, honoring her limits, and now Benjamin, rediscovering creative joy. There's a common thread running through all of them. Each person had to learn, in their own way, that suffering comes not from circumstances, but from how we relate to circumstances. They had to discover that peace is available now, not after everything is perfect. They learned to release what they couldn't control, to accept what is, to be present with reality rather than fighting with it. They found that their worth doesn't depend on achievement, that comparison steals joy, that forgiveness frees the forgiver, that death's inevitability makes life precious, that contentment is a practice, not a destination. The teachings of Buddhism aren't abstract philosophy. They're practical wisdom for living, for reducing unnecessary suffering, for finding peace within life's inevitable difficulties. And what's remarkable is that these teachings are available to anyone, at any time. You don't need to become a Buddhist, don't need to adopt new beliefs. You don't need to change your religion or worldview. These are simply observations about how human minds work, how suffering is created, and how it can be released. As you rest here now, breathing slowly, sinking deeper into relaxation, all of these teachings are settling into you. You don't need to remember every story, every detail, every lesson. The essence is finding you, working on you at levels deeper than conscious thought. You're learning, in your very bones, how to meet life with more acceptance, more presence, more peace. And this learning will continue long after tonight, will emerge when you need it, will guide you toward wisdom in moments of difficulty. Your body is so heavy now, so completely relaxed, ready for the deep restorative sleep you need. Your mind is quiet, thoughts like distant clouds, barely noticeable. You're drifting in that peaceful space between waking and sleeping, held by awareness, safe in this moment, complete just as you are. There's nothing you need to do, nowhere you need to go, no one you need to be. Just rest, just breathe, just be. These teachings aren't separate from your life. They're not something you study and then return to your regular existence. They become woven into how you see, how you respond, how you live. When you face difficulty, something in you will remember there's another way. When you're caught in resistance, something will whisper acceptance. When you're drowning in others' suffering, you'll recall compassion with boundaries. When you're comparing yourself to others, you'll recognize your own path matters. When you're lost in past or future, you'll know, come back to now. This is how wisdom works. Not as memorized information, but as embodied understanding. You practice, you forget, you remember, you practice again. Each time, the pattern strengthens. Each time, the teaching goes deeper. Each time, you find it easier to access peace, to release suffering, to meet life as it actually is, rather than as you wish it would be. And gradually, almost without noticing, you become someone who suffers less, who responds with more wisdom, who lives with more presence and peace. The Buddha taught that we all have the capacity for awakening, for freedom from unnecessary suffering. This capacity isn't something we have to create or earn. It's already present, has always been present, is simply waiting to be recognized. Every story you heard tonight, every person who found their way to peace, they didn't become someone else. They simply recognized what was already true, released what was never necessary, returned to a natural way of being that had been obscured by conditioning, by fear, by habits of resistance and control. You have this same capacity. Right now, as you rest here breathing, the seeds of every teaching are already planted in you. The capacity for acceptance, for presence, for compassion, for wisdom, for peace. These aren't foreign qualities you have to import from somewhere else. They're your natural state, simply covered over by layers of conditioning, by learned patterns of suffering, as you practice what you've learned tonight, you're not adding something new. You're removing what's false, what's unnecessary, what's always been optional. Your breath knows this already. It doesn't try too hard or give up completely. It finds the natural rhythm that sustains life. Your heart knows this already. It doesn't compare itself to other hearts or judge its beating as insufficient. It simply beats, fulfilling its purpose without self-consciousness. Your body knows this already. It heals without your conscious direction, maintains countless processes without your management, knows how to rest when rest is needed. You can trust this natural wisdom that's already operating in you, this intelligence that's been here all along. Feel yourself sinking even deeper now, your body melting into complete relaxation, your mind drifting into that peaceful spaciousness that needs nothing, wants nothing, resists nothing. You're held by this moment, supported by this breath, safe in simple being. All the seeking can stop, all the striving can rest, all the fighting can cease. Just for now, just for this moment, everything can be exactly as it is, and that is enough. You are enough. This is enough. In Zen Buddhism, they speak of just sitting, not sitting to achieve something, not sitting to become enlightened, not sitting to fix yourself or reach some goal, just sitting, being present with what is. And in that simple presence, in that release of all agenda, there's a profound peace. You're practicing that now, not trying to get anywhere, not trying to become anyone, not trying to achieve some special state, just breathing, just being, just allowing this moment to be exactly what it is. The great Zen master, Dogen, said, "To study the self is to forget the self." What he meant was that the more you investigate your experience directly, the more you realize there's no separate self that needs protecting, defending, or constantly improving. There's just this awareness, experience, presence, life flowing through this body-mind. When you stop fighting to maintain some fixed identity, when you release the constant project of self-improvement, when you simply are, there's tremendous freedom. This doesn't mean you stop growing or learning or developing. Benjamin didn't stop writing. Jessica didn't stop being a doctor. Andrew didn't stop thinking. But they stopped making their worth depend on these things. They stopped treating themselves as projects that needed fixing. They found a way to be fully engaged with life while resting in a fundamental okayness that doesn't depend on anything external. You can rest in this okayness now. Not because you've achieved everything you want to achieve. Not because you've fixed all your problems. Not because your life is perfect. But because beneath all the surface turbulence, beneath all the thoughts and emotions and stories, there's a simple presence that's always been okay, always been whole, always been complete. This presence is what you are beneath all the identities, all the roles, all the stories about who you should be. Breathe into this knowing. Let yourself feel the simple fact of being alive, of being aware, of being present for this moment. This is what's real. This is what's always been real. Everything else, the worries, the regrets, the plans, as the judgments, these are like weather passing through the sky of awareness. They come, they go, but the sky remains. You are that sky, vast, open, unchanging, able to hold everything without being disturbed by anything. Tonight, You've journeyed through many teachings, many stories, many lives transformed by Buddhist wisdom. Sarah learned that true compassion means being present with suffering without drowning in it, maintaining your own peace so you can actually help others. Thomas discovered the difference between pain and suffering, learning that while pain is inevitable, the suffering we create by fighting with pain is optional. Margaret showed us that acceptance of change, even unwanted change, frees us to live fully within new realities rather than exhausting ourselves fighting with what is. Oliver taught us about working skillfully within difficult circumstances, accepting reality while still advocating for what we believe in, finding the middle way between resignation and resistance. Rachel demonstrated that accepting others' choices, even when we disagree with them, creates space for authentic relationship rather than control and conflict. Thomas, with his regret, revealed that fighting with the unchangeable past only creates present suffering. That acceptance of what happened frees us to live fully now. Sophie showed us how acceptance of our emotions, rather than fighting with them, reduces their power over us, allowing feelings to move through naturally rather than becoming stuck. James the farmer learned to accept uncertainty as part of life, working skillfully within unpredictable conditions rather than exhausting himself trying to eliminate uncertainty. Catherine discovered the importance of accepting her own truth, even when it meant disappointing others or choosing an unconventional path. Finding that alignment with authentic self brings peace that external success never could. Emma and her garden taught us about accepting impermanence, appreciating beauty while it's present without desperately trying to make it permanent. Understanding that impermanence isn't the enemy of beauty, but its very condition. Daniel, the photographer, learned about non-grasping, being present with beauty without needing to possess it. Finding that presence creates more genuine connection than constant attempts at capture and control. Michael showed us the importance of accepting our own imperfections, practicing self-compassion instead of harsh self-judgment, recognizing that we're worthy, not because of what we achieve, but simply because we are. Kevin demonstrated how comparison steals joy, how focusing on our own growth rather than measuring ourselves against others brings both peace and genuine development. Hannah revealed the power of present moment awareness for healing trauma, showing that while the past shaped us, we live only in this present moment where healing is possible. Patrick learned about releasing control, discovering that holding lightly rather than gripping tightly actually strengthens relationships. That trust creates more connection than control ever could. Rebecca faced death directly and found that accepting mortality rather than denying it makes us more present, more appreciative, more fully alive, because we recognize time's preciousness. Lucas discovered that contentment isn't about having everything, but about appreciating what we have. That satisfaction is available now, rather than always deferred to the next achievement. Fiona taught us that forgiveness frees the forgiver, that holding grudges hurts us more than those we're angry at, that letting go isn't condoning harm, but releasing ourselves from the prison of resentment. Andrew learned to integrate head and heart, thinking and feeling, discovering that wisdom requires both rational analysis and emotional presence, that we are most complete when we access all our human capacities. Jessica showed us that self-care isn't selfish but necessary, that we can't sustainably care for others when we're depleted, that honoring our limits allows us to show up more fully. And Benjamin rediscovered beginner's mind, learning that releasing attachment to outcomes and returning to love of process brings both joy and, paradoxically, better results. All these teachings point to the same essential truth. Peace comes not from perfect circumstances, but from how we relate to circumstances. From accepting what is, being present with reality, releasing what we can't control, finding sufficiency in enough, forgiving to free ourselves, living fully because time is limited, integrating all parts of ourselves, caring for ourselves so we can care for others, and engaging with life from love rather than from fear. These aren't just beautiful ideas. They're practical paths to reducing suffering, to living with more wisdom, to finding peace within life's inevitable challenges. And they're all available to you, right now, in this moment. As you breathe and rest and allow these teachings to work on you at the deepest levels. Sleep now, dear friend. Let everything go. Let these teachings integrate while you rest, while you dream, while your body and mind restore themselves. When you wake, you'll carry this wisdom with you. Maybe not consciously, maybe not in words, but as a felt sense, a knowing in your bones, a capacity to meet life with more acceptance, more presence, more peace. You are held, you are safe, you are enough. Rest deeply now. Breathe slowly, feeling each breath carrying you deeper into rest, deeper into peace, deeper into the profound relaxation that heals and restores. Your body knows how to sleep, how to release, how to let go of everything that doesn't serve you. Trust this natural process. Trust your body's wisdom. Trust that everything you've heard tonight is already working on you, already changing you, already freeing you in ways you don't need to understand consciously. Feel the darkness around you, welcoming you, holding you like a soft blanket. This darkness isn't something to fear, but something to rest in, to surrender to allow yourself to dissolve into. You don't need to stay alert anymore. You don't need to track these words. Your deeper self has received everything it needs. Now you can simply drift, float, release into the peaceful void of deep sleep. Your whole body is so heavy now. Your head sinks into the pillow, completely supported. Your shoulders have dropped, releasing all the tension they've been carrying. Your arms lie still at your sides, hands softly open, the fingers completely relaxed. Your chest rises and falls with effortless breath, your heart beating its steady rhythm without your conscious attention. Your belly is soft, your hips released, your legs heavy like they're made of lead, sinking down, down into complete rest. Nothing is required of you now. Nothing needs your attention. Nothing needs to be figured out or fixed or improved. You can just be here, just breathing, just resting, just allowing sleep to take you wherever it wants to take you. Let go of any remaining thoughts about tomorrow, about yesterday, about anything at all. Just this breath, just this moment, just this gentle descent into sleep. You are safe, completely safe. Nothing can harm you here. You can release all vigilance, all protection, all guarding. You can be vulnerable, open, soft, because you are held by this moment, supported by this breath, safe in simple being. Let yourself trust this safety. Let yourself sink into it. Let yourself disappear into it. Sleep is coming for you now, like a gentle tide. Inevitable, natural, welcome. You don't have to chase it or force it. Just allow it. Just open to it. Just let it carry you away from this shore of waking into the vast ocean of deep, dreamless rest. You're already drifting, already floating, already beginning to dissolve into sleep's embrace. All the Buddhist wisdom you've received tonight, all the stories of transformation and awakening, all the teachings about acceptance and presence and peace, they're yours now. They're part of you. They'll emerge when you need them, guide you when you're lost, remind you of truth when you forget. But right now, you don't need to think about any of it. Right now, you can just sleep, just rest, just let go completely. Your breathing is so slow now, so deep, so peaceful. Each exhale releases a little more, lets go a little more, surrenders a little more to sleep. You're at that threshold, that beautiful edge between waking and sleeping. And now you can cross over. Now you can let go of consciousness itself. Now you can fall into the deep, restoring darkness that heals everything. Sleep well, dear friend. Sleep deeply. Sleep peacefully. May these teachings bring you freedom. May you wake refreshed and renewed. May you carry this peace with you into all your days. But for now, just sleep, just rest, just be. Good night.